Hello, hello. In theory, we are live on the internet now. So for the folks that are joining, with me is Swordfin Patrick from CAS Iberia. You know a little bit about me, but I will let him introduce himself if you didn't catch the first stream that he was a guest on. Patrick, if you would.
Hello, Sword World. I am Patrick Shipley. I'm a product marketing manager for CAS Iberia, occasional janitor, warehouse truck worker, whatever they need me to do. Photographer, bouncer, whatever, animal chaser, whatever they need us to do.
A man of many talents, wearing many hats. I see.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that's the thing that a lot of people have to do if they work for a for a smaller company. You have to do a lot of different things.
Well, we're the biggest little company you'll ever deal with. So,
How big is CAS Iberia? I have no idea.
I don't know. It depends on how you assign that metric. We got over 1,000 products. We got a huge warehouse, just a tiny office. With 10 or less people. So it's kind of it fluctuates, but yeah, there's just a few of us.
That's so less than 10. That's a lot of hats.
Yeah.
If you're talking about, because you have over 1,000 products across a lot of it's not just swords of a different variety of stick, so to speak. You cover a lot of different types of sword, and then you have armors, and you have kind of a lot of different things in between. You got some sticks. You got swords on a stick. You probably got some armor that's a sword too.
There you are. You get some internet up there in Minnesota.
What's that?
I said you froze there for a minute. You were like,
I tend to do that. I think my internet is not awful today, but we will find out on how the stream goes. Yes, I would imagine that with 10 people and that many products, and I know that you're one of the larger distributors of things. So in terms of volume of those thousands of SKUs that move, that's a lot of hats that people have to wear, I would imagine. So that's good. And also, Patrick, you're looking pretty spiffy yourself. Last time you were on, you said you were sick as a dog, but it looks like you've been hitting the gym or something. You doing all right?
I no longer have the plague. I don't feel the need to have my hand on the mouse to mute every time I cough. So yeah, it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough there. I was not feeling good. It was funny. I watched the video this past week just to kind of refresh what we had covered, so I didn't repeat myself this time. And I noticed, wow, everybody got to see the top of my head a lot as I was like leaned over, like, yeah. So I'll try not to grace you with the top of my head this time. I actually upgraded my cam too since. So
looking swanky. Yeah, it's a little less wide angle. So
yeah. I got it zoomed in now.
Well, I'm digging it. We're all set up to have lots of fun. There are a few folks that have joined us. I kind of wanted to start with the reviews that I did last time that we had chatted. I don't think I had done. I'm not sure what I had done. Maybe I'd done some of the reviews or not all of them, but now I know I've completed all of the reviews for the 3 samples that you had originally sent me. I know I've got a couple more. Patrick incidentally sent a gladius, and or I don't think it's a gladius, but something Roman-esque.
And then
is it? I thought it might be a Sparta because it's longer, but it shows what I know. So I got a little bit to learn on that one, and then a kind of the Dragon King iteration of the tactical wakizashi. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but kind of a new
modern katana.
The modern katana, but the modern wakizashi. There we go. Yeah, so you won't have to worry about loose ito on any one of them. uh, but that was one of the critiques that I had in the tiger side of things. But I'm curious if you had any thoughts about anything review wise, anything you think I got wrong, or that maybe there was a different perspective on.
Did I disappear there for a second?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. The only thing, the only thing that plagued me about that whole thing is the loose Ito. I have no, because I picked that one myself, and because I wanted, when I sent you the Sea Wave from Dragon King, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to send you the Tiger because I wanted you to have something to compare apples to apples. Two folded steel blades from basically literally two Chinese forges that are virtually across town from each other. So, and I was just baffled when I'm sitting here watching. I'm looking at the video going, he's either got really strong hands and he's pushing that Ito, because it was not like that when I sent it to you. So somewhere between Tennessee and Minnesota, something sucked the moisture out of the handle.
It's a bit of a mystery because the Dragon King, I don't think that was a critique that I had. It seemed to hold up well, and the Tiger, I did it later, I guess, so it had more time. It was last in line, but I'd been kind of handling it, practicing with it, and I don't think it got looser in terms of like overall from the time I had, at least not noticeably, but I started training with it really more so after the Sea Wave.
Yeah, I think the reason why because I remember checking it, because you talked, I think in the previous review, you talked about the knot, and I was checking the knot to make sure the knot was not loose. It's not a double negative. To make sure that it was not loose when I sent it to you. So I don't know, man. My GM was like, "Why did you send in one with loose Ito?" Like, it wasn't loose when I sent it.
Well, you did mention something. Maybe he has strong hands. I do mention my sausage fingers, but that's more about grip size. But I do have grip is one of those, like, if I had any born like weirdly strong thing, it would be my grip. I don't know that it's like anything. It's maybe just a touch above average in terms of that. I which I didn't find out until like I did jujitsu and stuff, and I was like doing the ninja gyms with my daughter too, and people found it really weird that I could just grab them really really hard, or that I wouldn't lose grip when they tried to break it, or that if I missed a rung doing the salmon ladder and fell, like I could still hold myself after it came down. So I have a hefty grip, more than is maybe typical for somebody, but I don't think like I could push it. And I also couldn't with the Sea Wave, and I have like a Bushido over here that doesn't do that. So it's also not that Hanwei, like across the spectrum of swords. I have several over here that don't do that. It just happened to be the Tiger that happened. So I don't know. Maybe it cooked. Maybe the winter dried it out. I'm not sure.
Well, and and as I told you in our email correspondence, there's a lot of times, shimming, the saya. Of course, we're here in Tennessee, which we're in a pretty humid area. Our warehouse is not temperature controlled or anything like that. If it's hot in the summer, it's, outside, it's hot in the summer in the warehouse. If it's cold, it's cold. But the long and the short of it was, one of the things we fight with on a katana a lot is the sayas, and we'll shim them, the day before, and then come in the next day and we got to shim them again. I don't know why. It's something that we watch, pretty consistently. So it's after 20 years in the business, I'm really getting to the point where I really don't like katanas anymore. They've become problematic and finicky. But no, sometimes it just happens. You know, I think it's just the nature of natural product, because you know there's not synthetics in it. You know, it's real. You know, that tiger has a real wood core. It has, you know, real Japanese cotton, you know, real same, real bamboo pegs. It's all real. And anything that's natural is going to shrink and swell. And maybe it was just, no pun intended, the luck of the draw on that one. But I don't know, man. It's a mystery.
You mentioned before that that's not something, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. You said it's not something a lot of people complain about, but that I complain about a lot. So maybe I'm just in a particularly dry environment.
That's why I think it's you. I think it's
just
all
me.
You. It's just you, man.
Yes, and I noticed your next selection had no Ito whatsoever on it. So
well, in all honesty, I wanted to send you something different because spoiler, we got some news. We got some new swords coming. Hopefully, mid-June into July. And we kind of talked about this last time. I kind of hinted at it. I've got 2 new katana that are coming from Dragon King, and this has been something that people have asked for in the seasonal katana series. You know, the winter, the spring, autumn, and they're all through tempered. People have been asking for actual differentially tempered forged blades, and we've got 2 coming in July. So
fantastic. Which seasons, or is it
autumn and spring?
Okay,
which are really the 2 popular, 2 most popular in the Dragon King line. So we're going to start there. I got the prototypes. I guess a few weeks ago, and the polish on it looks awesome. It's probably the best polish I've seen in a long, long time. So I think people are going to be excited when they see it. I've got to get around to doing some photos, but yeah, we got some new katana coming. So I didn't want to overload you with katana. So I thought you might. I'm still tempted to send you the halfling sword to see if you'll dress up as a hobbit.
I'm not above it. I'm not above it, sir. In terms of Dragon King, one thing that has come up recently in the dojo, and I know we talked about it last time a little bit. But actually, before I move on from that, was there anything else apart from the Ito that you wanted to talk through from the review side of things, or did everything else?
I mean, you know, as your viewers obviously don't know, but you know, as you and I have talked, you know, this is your thing. You know, you're entitled to your opinion. We just, you know, we just want to be able to respond. You know, if there's something egregious, you know, that goes wrong, you know, we want to know, because you know, these are handmade products. You know, sometimes we don't X-ray them. You know, even though we inspect before everything's inspected before it leaves. You know, sometimes something gets through. You know, especially on the HEMA side. We had a couple of sport fetters that looked like they had a couple that were bad. We replaced them all, obviously. You know, some of them, it's always better to bend than break, and we had 1 or 2 that in the last batch that snapped, and which was odd. But you know, we're talking less than 2%, which is way better than acceptable in my book. So you know, just things like that. We always want to be aware. So I mean, but yeah, I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. You know, swords are so subjective. You know, what works for me may not necessarily work for you, if that makes sense.
That is truthiness. It rings with truthiness, sir. So there's an enormous amount of things that are subjective in terms of like the handle's too long or the blade's too thin or this or that, or things that I like or don't like, right? There's a little Goldilocks syndrome, I suppose, going on, especially with a person with, you know, that's very pedantic over the internet about these things all the time. So I do, I guess when I'm asking that question, it's less about like, hey, you know, like the Tiger, I really like the length of the blade, handle's a little long for me. And so when I ask a question like, would I personally buy it? Well, that would be like, if that's not a limiting factor for you, then disregard, right? Like the only thing that I would hold against it is, you know, the things that I mentioned. If it was only the handle length, then, you know, it's not really a dig on the sword. It's a dig on, or it's just it's a Goldilocks thing, right?
Yeah.
But then there's those less objective things like, you know, this is loose, or that is cracked, or this broke prematurely, or it's made wrong, or it's dangerous. And there are certainly times where there are more objective things that are bad, as opposed to the Goldilocks syndrome. And even within that, you know, like if I argue that something is loose, somebody else is perfectly content to spray it with lacquer or, you know, something to tighten it up, and not it's not a problem for them. So even things that are really bad, there's only a few swords out there that have pretty universally been despised. I don't think that that anything you sent is on that very short list. Nothing sprung back at me and tried to kill me, or was really aggressively made.
Yeah, that would be bad.
But I suppose when I'm asking, like, did I get anything off? That's really more the vein that I'm looking at, because it is a great chance after I've put those videos out for you to, I don't know, you know, let me know if something's off. But if there's not, I'm perfectly happy with that, and I can move topics then.
No, it's like I said, you know, it was just weird. It's just weird.
Yep, Lucito. Well, I know it doesn't always happen, and if I hold, I can go grab both of them. I think they're put away at the moment. But if I move the Dragon King around, because I did it while we were talking, I did it after we talked, and you were like, it's weird, and I looked at the Dragon King and the tiger, and the tiger I mean, they're both kind of in the way that I described them from the review. So being out and being used and mucked around with hasn't done much. The tiger, in fairness, though, has seen, despite the looseness, more action because of its size. Which brings me to the next point. We talked last time about long blades, and there's a couple tall guys in my dojo that recently passed their tests and want to spend some money on a sword. And more specifically, they primarily want it to cut tatami mats, but they are all like over 6'5", and so a 27, 28 inch blade is, you know, a little bit more of a wakizashi to them. So they're like, why can I get a 28 inch, you know, something 30 inches in a XL blade mat? And I said, I'll heckle Patrick when I talk to him next time.
You know, it's funny because I've been having that conversation. So our general manager and I, Krista McDaniel, I've been talking to her about it. Certainly something that I'm looking into. It won't happen this year, obviously. Maybe next year. I am thinking I'm in product development. I'm looking at 31. I think that's going to be the number. I'm looking at 31-inch blade.
I think that's a good one. That's a good one. I mean, ideally, you could have, you know, a tailored size to fit everyone, but I understand that, like, things have to sell, right? And I would like it if there were longer stuff out there, because there are people there's a lot of tall boys out there studying martial arts, and they really struggle to find swords that are not just an elongated 28-inch blade, you know, with they don't either have the XL geometry, or I don't know, they tend to get kind of whippy at times, or don't feel necessarily great. Though the Wind and Thunder is a nice biggin, and so is the what is it? The Winter Suns that I've had have all been longer, and those actually didn't feel too bad. Those from Dragon King. Are there any Dragon King blades that have the XL style geometry?
That's a good question. Now we're talking here. When you're talking XL, you're talking about like the practical XL type Hanwei, right? Or you're talking about
the Tori XL, the Musashi XL, there was a Shinto XL for a while. The practical XL or Elite, either one. But like, I look on the Dragon King site, and if I can share my my screen here, maybe I can bring everyone along for the journey.
I've been trying to pay attention to the chat this time and respond. So if it looks like I'm spaced out for a second, I'm replying to people in the chat.
You are a better man than I, sir. I am.
Some people I know in there.
I am notoriously crappy at chat.
Space Ghost, no Space Ghost. Of course, I think Joe was there somewhere.
Joe was here. I thought I sent him a link to join too. We'll see if he can hop on. All right, so this is the old Dragon King site here, and it looks like this looks like a wider blade geometry.
It is. Probably the one that would probably flip your trigger would be the Kawanakajima, because that's a beefy blade.
Kawanakajima.
It's a folded steel blade. That one, that's a beefy coder right there.
Yes. Well, look at that. All manner of pretty. Okay. Well, that's good to know, because they're the Tori is the higher end version that has like an XL style geometry and the folded steel stuff. So if you want to get all those features, the Tori seems like the one that you have, and it is suede tone. It's got kind of a subtle look. I always thought it was a really handsome sword, but it's good to know that Dragon King has that kind of wider geometry. I didn't know that they actually had any, and I haven't seen any, so that's a good thing to know.
Well, if I can, the problem with folded steel, it's hard to keep on the shelf. But if I can manage this, no pun intended, swing one, I'll see what I can do about getting you one, but to try out. But we've got so many new products coming out this year, and I'm trying to make sure I got things in the pipeline for next year. Certainly, when you're trying to design products specifically for practitioners, sometimes it's a crapshoot on whether you're going to make it successful or not. Now, we do our best to respond to what people want and need, as particularly martial arts, not just Japanese, Asian or European as well, because they're a picky crowd as well when it comes to got to have certain hardness, certain dimension of roundness on blunted blades, and SEA has their requirements, and then HEMA's got theirs, and it's hard to, there's no magic bullet product that says this is the sword that solves all your problems. So it just doesn't exist. But we do our best to respond to those. Like I said, I'm looking at a 31-inch blade, trying to make that happen.
So one of the things that I've noticed is that if you hypothetically have oodles of money, then you can order a really high-end blade. You can spend all sorts of money. We're aware of that, but they don't happen quickly, right? So it may take a period of months. Sometimes it takes a year to get a sword out. There's I think not Hanwei, but Huawei, another sword company that's
always sounds like a phone to me.
Yeah, that's often confused. It's the same spelling as the cell phone company that isn't allowed in the U.S. But maybe it's made out of those recycled cell phones that were bound for the U.S. I'm not sure, but they do a good job. And very often, though, it can take a year to get a sword out, as I understand it. So what that tells me is that people are willing to wait. And so if hypothetically somebody said, hey, you know what, I really like the Kawanakajima, but I'd really like a 31-inch blade. Since these are all handmade products, if there was could you order it and then have the factory just make you a longer one and have that come in if there was a 6-month waiting period, or if you could get them in batches? Is that?
It's not really how they're set up. Hanwei is still playing catch up. They've done a really good job just to get the production models up. I think we're probably at 75, 80, maybe 85% inventory right now. We used to do, back in the old days, we used to do some OEM stuff with Hanwei, but since the factory fire, it's not been the case. With Dragon King, we could probably do something like that maybe in the future, but they're not really set up to do just like one. It's prototyping is not cheap. It's not practical. So, but definitely when it comes to, it's easier for us to design something for a larger, in a larger quantity for a larger audience. Bugay used to fill that void back in the day. Of course, Hanwei was doing it for them. And then once had the factory fire in 2011, that kind of went out the window. So
aren't they still filling, or aren't you filling Bugay orders?
Yes, we're doing fulfillment for Bugay. Yes.
So I find that strange though, right? Because maybe I'm incorrect. Can you not still order different sizes of swords from Bugay?
Yeah. It's different different blade lengths, 27, 28, 29. And certain there's the corresponding Suka links, but it's not like custom. It's like three different blade lengths, three handle lengths with those corresponding, but it's not like it used to be.
Fair enough. So I suppose that's kind of what I know. There are Kyle has a way of putting it, like he calls them the drop down vendors, I think, where like you get to mix and match your assortment. And in my supply chain brain, the term for that is mass customization, right? If you order a computer on the internet, you can select, I want this much of the, this big or this fast or, this extra part in it. And they take those parts off the shelf, assemble them, and send it off. And so there are a lot of different supply chains that are like that. And I wouldn't suggest, if it's not the way these are done, and I can appreciate why they're not, they don't work that way.
Yeah.
At the same time, if Hanwei is set up, or Dragon King or whoever, to offer some slight variations in size, that's really it. Because I could see somebody saying, I want the Kawana Kojima. I like that wide profile. I want a folded blade, but I also want it in a longer format. I want, even if you could, 29 is not necessarily quite long enough for some of the taller people. But if it went up to 31 inches and stopped there, and then you could select the handle length, because really those things are the larger dictators of what seem to suit a practitioner's fancy. A school might have longer handles, so you're looking for a sword with a longer handle, and some schools require longer blades or a blade based on your height. Some are shorter. So if you could pick a sword that you like the fittings of, that you enjoyed the story that was created in those fittings, and just have it sized to your particular need.
Yeah.
It seems like that is something that Hanwei does for Bugay. So why, what's the obstacle to doing it for you?
Well, personally, we've never really had a need.
Okay.
We've looked at that before in the past, and it's like getting together with an ex-girlfriend. It's like, it sounds like a good idea, but I don't know if we want to go through that trouble again.
I don't know that I would recommend
on the katana
doing it
side.
on.
Let me say that on the katana side. Now,
yeah.
On the rapier side, that is what I'm working on for Kingston Arms.
Okay.
Kingston Arms, if you saw our new swept tilt rapier that just came out, it's going to have interchangeable parts because it's coming to us disassembled, and we're shipping it unassembled. So hopefully by the first of next year, we're going to have a tournament blade, which will be for HEMA. Right now it comes with a sharp blade. And hopefully we're going to have two different blades that will correspond with that rapier. Now, as far as katana go, man, if we had somebody in house that could do the woodwork to make that a reality, to make it, the manufacturing of a katana is so different because all those handles are cut to that particular blade. The sides are all cut to that particular blade. So if we were to go down that customization route, hypothetically, there would be some things that you would lose, or some compromises that you would have to make. Like, for example, the SH1070, the practical katana, they've got that one down to a science to where, the blades are almost uniform as far as shape. So they can kind of mass produce the saya for it. They have a special process. So I think what it would boil down to is, in order to make something like that work, you would lose a lot of the things, a lot of the elements that make them special, and it would just make it more generic. It's like going to Disneyland and customizing your lightsaber. If you ever went to Disneyland and customized your lightsaber like I did, you're going to have a choice between red, green, blue, and purple. And then you're going to have 3 different hilts and so forth and so on. And it's not going to really be special at that point. It's just, I chose red or I chose purple.
I suppose what would make it special is being an option, right? At the moment, I could understand why. I guess if you can do it with Bugatti, and do you see varieties in because you're doing the fulfillment for those orders, right? Mm-hmm. That come through Bugatti. So do you see a lot of the same orders? Like, are people ordering the same thing, or is it like, hey, it's a lot of mix and match?
No, happening? It's pretty much people buying, 27, 28, 29. It's pretty much it. I mean, there's, just like on the CAS side, it's a ratio.
Yeah, but they're still in that well, that's what's offered, I suppose. So but you see differentiation between 28, 29, or 27, 28, 29. There's a variety of people ordering in that. If it was able to be expanded, right, and people knew that what they were consistently going to get, like those entry-level practitioner pieces are really what I hear most people interested in, because they're like, I want a sword to practice cutting tatami mats. The Hanwei blades the XL series have that wide profile is really specific and very effective at cutting tatami mats beyond most of the other things in the same price point. They're just too short, and there's no option outside of buying an Evolution blade for $3,500 that's really good at it. So there's a lot of people that, well, I don't know about a lot, but there's dozens at least of people that go in and spend a fair amount of money on an Evolution blade, and a lot more who settle for a different sword that isn't really geared to the activity that they're, maximizing the possible performance. So it just struck me as a possible sales opportunity if there was one blade, even if it was just the base practical XL, or maybe if it has to be worth it a little bit more, maybe the Elite or something, where you had that level of customization, so that at least it was funneled into one blade that was cost effective, and then those orders for the tall boys would go into one spot. They wouldn't necessarily be scattered around every possible steel type and every fitting set and every this is and that. Anyway,
the Suka is the big problem on that whole situation. I mean, they could do like blades in Shirasaya. That would, we used to have a few blades in just Shirasaya that we used to sell. But it's hard to, when you get the Suba, to get them the fit, you have to do a lot of manual work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To get them to slide on there. I promise you, once a year, I probably invest about a week of my life thinking about how to make this work, because it's like going back to that project, that dream project. I would love to be able to do that, but the reality is we struggle to keep just the standard base models in stock a lot of times. Maybe once we got that smoothed out, and then we can work on the dream project of being able to customize and pick your Suba, pick your,
Well,
pick
if that
this.
doesn't work and it's just economies of scale in one product, then
Yeah.
I vote you make a new one called the Tall Boy. And since putting beer is maybe too contemporary,
We'll ship it in a brown bag.
Yeah, you could ship it in a brown bag. That would be one. But you could maybe put like some plum wine or like some sake theme on there. Real simple fitting so that it could be cost effective, and then just make yourself a 31-inch blade. I dig it.
I do. I mean, I have a whole nother series of katana that I've been working on with Frenchy Jen on for Dragon King. Unfortunately, we've had other projects that kind of trumped it, because right now on the I hate to say it, but the Japanese sword side of the business right now is not that happening. I was hoping with Shogun, everybody would want to be a samurai again, but it hasn't had the effect that I want. Great series, by the way. I'm always looking for our products in there, but I didn't see any. But right now, the main focus is on European. So we neglected the European side of things for a while. So hopefully next year I'll be able to get back to doing some of those passion projects. Like I said, I want to be able to do the 31-inch blade to see how that goes. And but yeah, if one day if I can figure out how to make it work, I definitely will make it happen. But right now we've had a lot of brains on trying to figure out how to make that happen. And
is it possible? Like, I don't know where the break even point is, but it does seem like you could order a small batch of 31-inch blades just in the practical and call them like the 31-inch tester. I don't know. You can.
No, I mean, yeah, we could do 31-inch blade. That's not a problem. It's just
put the same handle on it.
What's the handle length? What does the handle length need to be? What's the radius? What's the theme? What's going to be the one thing that everybody, the mass majority of people, are going to like?
Well, that's why I'd say just stick to practical, because it's the price that they like. I want a sword that cuts tatami. I want a dedicated lawnmower that lets me do cool trick cuts on some medium targets. And I want it to be really cost effective, because $500 starts to be that's like the budget where people are like, I think I could spend that. It used to be $300, and now it seems like people are around $500. So if you keep it as whatever you can offer in the practical series in that 31-inch with an 11 or 12-inch handle, 12 is like bigger than the folks who like that 10 folks who like 10.5-inch handles, which I fall into that category. It's bigger, but like still in the realm of tolerance. And people that want 15-inch handles, it's too short, but it's not egregiously. So it's kind of a happy medium.
Yeah.
And tall boys usually want, for a longer blade, maybe a little extra reach on there anyway, so that the 10-inch handle maybe doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, I'm just saying do a test and see how many of them end up selling out. But you got to like call it something like, buy this if you want more.
The overcompensator.
Yeah, the practical tall boy test edition.
Keep pushing that name; it's gonna stick.
Yep, you could call it the tall boy, and like put a big old glass of beer sticker on the box or something, and that's how you know you got yourself a tall boy. Anyway, yeah, I've said my piece. I've heckled you sufficiently around tall blades, because I know I had two people in the dojo mad at me that they didn't exist. And I was like, I don't make them, but I can yell at the people who do.
Just tell them it's churning.
I hear what you mean, though. I also have, in my day job, I deal with supply chainy things, and there are probably 2 or 3 issues that every year somebody's like, this is really dumb. Why don't you fix this? And it's a problem that has nuance and context and just doesn't work. And so that's why it is the way it is. And
yeah, I mean, if katanas had screw-on pommels, it's that whole encapsulated tang issue that really mucks the whole thing up. But maybe one day, like I said, there'll be some piece of technology that comes along. Maybe it's a 3D printed suka underneath that will revolutionize the industry. I'm always looking at that stuff because, will the purists be able to accept a 3D printed suka if it's in like a near indestructible material underneath their ray skin and cotton wrapped handle?
Yeah.
Because I watched the video that you and Joe kind of had back and forth on the Nihonto, and I'm thinking to myself, would people accept if they could get what they want if it was like if it had 3D printing on it or 3D printed components?
I think fundamentally the purist folks out there are like the deep purist ones are already not. You're not going to change their hearts and minds, right? They're not a customer of CAS Iberia, because anything made in a forge in China just is antithetical to the interest. At the same time, there's levels, right? You offer things that are closer to that history. I've heard that the Manchurian railway steel that used to be used as a material is desirable because it's closer to what gunto are made out of. And so there's a lot of people that are interested in the railway steel, not because of some performance characteristic, but because gunto were made out of that. And so these reproduction swords have the same historical source that historical Japanese blades did. And there's this kind of tie to the history, albeit maybe a grimmer tie, because those those gunto were not necessarily at like the coolest point in Japanese warfare. But anyway, the people are interested in different types of folding and this and that and the other because they may be closer to what they're trying to emulate. But there's also people that just want a cool space age sword. Like I think you answered the question by selling L6 blades, right? Like there's a bunch of people who want super space age metal, and I don't think it would, as long as it's still like a katana, I don't think you're gonna get too many people mad. If you find some sort of, I don't know, like you wrap it in Alcantara or something and have a G10 core, I think you're so long as it can come apart and you can still kind of do the ritual part of what you would do with a katana, and it's still part for part the same and goes in and comes apart, you're still doing it. It's when it becomes like the swords that are welded together, right? Like it looks like a katana in profile, but it doesn't act the same way. You don't take it apart the same way. You don't clean it the same way. You don't have any of that kind of stuff to deal with. I think you start to lose that a little bit. But yeah, I think you could make. There's been some really cool custom swords that I've seen that have had like G10 cores or some sort of like laminated material underneath, and then they've been wrapped in some sort of like really modern material that's resilient. I don't know if it's like a Kevlar weave or something, and then they've had titanium Fuchikashira and stuff like that on them. So I think people are certainly receptive to it. If it was 3D printed, at least to me, that wouldn't be a detractor if it all fit together well.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is usually about July when things are kind of slow, and I'm doing mundane projects around the office. The custom katana thing always goes into my mind. So if you want to bring this up in July, I'll probably be thinking about it more in depth then.
That's Patrick's time for noodling on ideas. Okay,
that's right.
What if it's not too much? I'm not trying to expose any trade secrets. How much are, like, in terms of Japanese swords and the volume move there versus European swords? You said they're getting more attention. Is that because European swords are moving more products now than the Japanese side of the?
It's just it's like everything, in business, as you know, you have seasons. When Lord of the Rings was hot, we couldn't keep back in the early 2000s, we couldn't keep any type of medieval sword on the shelf. And for whatever reason, I think HEMA has really taken off and has kicked that pig, so to speak. The Japanese waxes and wanes. It has seasons. I think Ren fairs have a lot to do with it too. The popularity of that. I just just right now, the European, products are just more popular, and it's not like the Japanese katana is going away. It's just not strong. It's not as strong as it once was. It'll come back, and once the market kind of snaps back a little bit to that direction, you'll see some more attention there. But
You have
I
a very mature catalog of Japanese products, though. I mean, you have a really intricate and also very simple, and all manner of different colors for a sword that I think if you're in the business, you probably appreciate some of the nuanced differences in a Japanese sword, but
sure,
obviously European stuff has a lot more variety in it. And if I look at the catalog of stuff you have for European swords, it looks less mature than
yeah,
some of the Japanese swords, right?
right.
So I can see why you would be putting attention into it, especially if it's where people are spending money.
Well, it's funny 'cause, I'm going to go back to the video that you did on, actual Japanese swords. I think it's about a year, maybe 2 years ago, we were actually contacted by someone in Japan and about doing some, having some swords, and it did not work out because math, and we were looking at some of the blades. I mean, it would be like the equivalent of buying a small car, you know. And I'm thinking to myself, this would be really cool to be able just to sell a blade, a real Japanese blade. But man, I mean, how many would we sell in a year? I mean, it was outrageously expensive just getting it into the country.
Yeah, I would imagine that is the case. Um, and I think you're also dealing with a different customer.
Oh yeah,
Um, Japanese swords are already real finicky, and so if you are uh, the European stuff is it's just easier. People seem a lot less timid about sharpening in the community in terms of like taking it to a belt sander, scuffing it up, fixing it with some Scotch Brite or buffing it. In a Japanese sword, if I have to take a stone to it or try to sharpen it, then I've basically ruined it. It's never going to be as good as it was when it came out of the factory. You know what I mean? I won't be able to put that kind of pristineness back on it. And so, yeah, it's a different animal and something that would require a little bit more babying, I'd imagine, but would be cool. I honestly have no idea. Tizando has put up a website that offers some drop down options where you can go and basically commission one of those swords, and it's 10 grand if you want like a blade that you can swing around. So but I have no idea what the volume is on those or how many sell, but I imagine it's not zero.
no, I mean, more power to. I mean, and that's the other thing when you're looking at the sword market, who's already doing it,
Hmm.
and you got people out there like them. I mean, why do we want to get in on that game? It's not necessarily our style, but like I said, every July I'll think about it.
Yeah,
The other thing, we were talking about in that video, I kind of wanted to respond to. We were talking about entry level. You know, Yeah, I don't think people realize, talking about sword collecting and things like that. A lot of the Hanwei, influence on this market is that it actually brought, especially in the early days, um, brought that option to the United States. I think that's I think it I think back then I don't think we realized what was really going on. I don't know if you're familiar with knives much, but Jim Frost, who I worked for about 10 years. He never really got the credit that he was due. Um, Frost, if you know Frost Cutlery, they're kind of known for less expensive knives, but Jim, really started a lot. He started a lot of knife collectors, with his lower end knives. And I think looking back on the last 20 years, plus in this industry. I think, there's a lot of high-end sword, companies that probably wouldn't have made it if we didn't have the less expensive katana and medieval sword to bring to the market. I don't think entry-level products are appreciated as much as they should be in that sense, because it does, that's where that's where you make the collector. That's where you inspire the collector to buy, or maybe the practitioner, because not everybody can buy a $10,000 sword.
No, and there's to be fair to the Japanese sword market, like you can find, if you're thrifty and you're at it, there are less expensive things that pop up, but that's not the business you're in, right? Like there's a shelf, you want one, I go grab it, I ship it to you, you go live your life, enjoy your sword, right? It's not a hunt. It's not a hunt for like, is this one meet my specs? What are the things? Are they selling it? Let's negotiate. Maybe I get it, maybe I don't. Like that's just a different experience.
Right.
And so, that I also agree with you that, and said as much when I talked about the Nihonto side of things, is that now I buy Nihonto, but now I spend $10,000 on a sword. I don't do it very often because my wife does not like it, but I am one of I am one of those people who is contributing to the market, and I definitely don't think I would be if I couldn't buy my Mall katana. Like if that didn't happen, and then I was like, oh, this is dumb, and then I went and bought a better one, and if that one didn't disappoint me, I wouldn't have gotten other ones. But like I needed accessibility to it. If it was always like this $10,000 thing, I don't think I would have ever done it. I had to like learn a lot and hold a lot of things and experience a lot of them before I felt comfortable forking out that kind of money. So yeah, I agree that the inexpensive, like the entry level products that come into the market absolutely inspire people, and don't like that isn't, people look at that and say, you've bought $120 knives for that amount of money. Like you could have commissioned a bladesmith or like bought this, thing of merit. And it's the same argument in the Nihonto side of things. Why did you buy all of these Hanwei products? I own 20 Hanwei swords. I could have bought a Shinsakudo for that much money. Why didn't you do that? Well, I don't, one, it's my money. Fuck you. But two, like, yeah, you live and learn and figure out what you like. I didn't, do I like smaller blades, bigger blades? Do I like a bohea? Do I like this color, big handles, small handles? If I just forked out 20 grand and had to live with it, like it's like marrying the first girl you meet. It may not be the right move. There's a lot of different personalities out there. It's best to, find something that works well.
Yeah. I mean, again, you go back to the subjective part of it. It was an interesting video, and like I said, I didn't want to steal your thunder from that one, but it did trigger some thoughts that I wanted to comment on tonight.
Yeah, I don't think that there's not an easy way to quantify it, though. It's easy to say like your collection consists of this, that money equals this, but there's not a lot of people that speak up and say like, I have both, and I wouldn't have the expensive stuff. I wouldn't be a customer of yours. I would be out of the market, and your whole market would contract. And oftentimes in the Nihonto space, there's this note that like Japanese swordsmiths are struggling to survive, and there's 100 of them out there practicing the art, and it's dying. And it's like, well, it is also functionally useless. Like it's art. They're artists that are making $10,000 works of art, and like it's a luxury good. Like you can't eat it, you can't drive it to work. Like the fact that there are 100 people making their livings, albeit not a great living, off of doing that is kind of neat. Like there's enough. It's like enough. It's like saying there's like, only 100 professional Zintar players in Japan. It's like, I'm surprised there's that many. I didn't realize there was enough demand to even do that. And so that means that like people do appreciate it and buy it. And I would imagine, like, I don't know if the market would be as big, but I would venture if there were no replicas, if there were no entry-level products, that it wouldn't be 100. And my guess would be that number today would be smaller.
Yeah. Well, CAS has been around for a long time. We've seen a lot of sword companies come and go. We're still here. We try to do our best to make the best product, bang for the buck that you can get. It's just the nature of we have to do what we do the best. And we always try to think outside the box, but sometimes you just got to be realistic on what you can achieve. And I'm very proud of a lot of the products that we've put out over the last few years. I've had a hand in several of them that are that have came out last year, this year, and that are going to be coming out next year. um it's it's funny. And I think I mentioned this last time, but I was just up in kind of up in the upper section, in the warehouse where we got all the prototypes, and I was looking for something, and I was looking at one of the older swords, and I was like, man, you've come a long way since 2001. When I look at like old Shintos and the old Golden Orioles, and just how different they are, compared to what they are today. And I got a different perspective.
Yeah, it absolutely has come a long way. I'm glad there's also still some of that available though, because there are some that really hit the nail on the head. The Orchid is one for me, but I mean, a lot of people really like the Bushido. There's been a bunch of people that seem really to have a hard on for the Kami lately. That's something I've heard a lot of chatter about. But that was I don't know if you were with CAS at the time, but the catalog that used to get put out and sent to cutlery stores, which don't like, it's a bygone era, right? There are not very many of those anymore. But kids would go in and they would see that catalog, and the Kami was right up at the top of the high end ones, and it was full of bling and had all the features. You turned all the dials up to 11. And so that was the thing that was the unapproachable. That was the bucket list experience that got added to a bunch of kids, kind of dream sword list. And now they're grown up and have money, and it's discontinued.
The Kami's probably gonna make a comeback probably next year, possibly. I say that because we get a few every once in a blue moon. But I was talking to Krista very seriously, maybe it was about a week or two ago, about bringing it back, but on a limited basis. Maybe do 20 a year if we can, we can justify the tooling expense.
That's fair. I realize I've sucked at chat here, and somebody sent a super chat in, so I feel obligated when somebody gives me money to bring their question up. Ordered a Valiant Armory. This is CAS Iberia, but bringing up somebody else's
Thanks.
stuff. I just spent my money somewhere else. What are your impressions of a VA war sword? I haven't personally had one. I've had very little experience with Valiant Armory. The only stuff I've gotten a hold, well, up until recently, I did play with one of their more recent ones, and it was very nice, but I haven't had one of those. Patrick, I don't know if you have or if you care to comment, but it does go into a question, though, of like, is there any competitor's product that you think like, ooh, good job? Like, sure. I hope you lose, but good job. Well done.
Sure.
I want that.
Well, Windlass has always done a good job with certain products. Of course, we CAS in the olden days, like in the mid 90s, used to buy from Windlass. And of course, when they transitioned to doing their own thing, that kind of came to an end. I don't really get to see other people's products like you do. The only time I get to see like a competitor's product is if somebody accidentally ships it back to us thinking it's ours. And then we have to say, no, this is not ours. Back in the olden days, back when we started, we used to have the sword show that ran during SHOT Show. And that is when basically all the sword manufacturers gathered at night in Vegas or wherever it was. And it was like us, Windlass, Cold Steel, United Cutlery, and 2 or 3 others. And we were in this ballroom for 2 or 3 nights. That was the only time I really got to see, the competitors' stuff. When we're all in there eating and drinking and, wheeling and dealing together. But I don't really get to see the stuff. I might get to see something at Blade Show coming up in June. If people let me in the booth, they're trying to sell product, and the customers, they see me with my CAS Iberia shirt on, and they're like, oh, he's trying to steal our product idea. I'm like, no, I geek out sometimes too, but I really don't get to see the stuff like I used to. But
So you mentioned the product theft. I guess I don't. I could be way off here, but like I don't know of CAS doing. Not that you would directly steal, but
sure, I want to admit stealing other people's idea on your.
Yeah,
on
this is
your
the best
show.
idea I ever stole. But you guys get stolen from a lot.
Oh yeah. No,
I just got a sword to review, and I'm like, these fittings are the Oni katana fittings.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's a lot of CAS. There's a lot of Hanwei knockoffs out there. Where it's probably where you see them the most is on eBay and Amazon. eBay and Amazon are riddled with CAS Hanwei knockoffs for sure. So that's why you need to buy from a legitimate CAS dealer. So
yeah. So I have seen
anyways,
knockoffs. I have seen especially the
no,
Bushido. I've seen a direct copy of that.
I'll look
but
at,
I see your fittings stolen a lot. That's what I see.
I'm sorry, you cut out there. What did you say?
Sorry, I said I do see knockoffs, particularly of the Bushido. That seems to be a favorite to make like a direct copy of and try to, you can pick it apart because the fittings are not usually as well done. That's the telltale sign. But I don't see a direct knockoff as often as I see the fittings copied and thrown into the parts bin in the other kind of Longchuan dealers. And so if I look at the Oni katana fittings that are on a sample that was recently sent to me to review, it's not trying to be an Oni katana. It's not at all mistakable for one, but the fittings are clearly like a recast of a Hanwei set of fittings.
Right.
And so I'd imagine that, it'd kind of be the reverse that would be concerning.
Yeah, no, I see it all the time. Up until I think last year, there was the tactical Wakasashi and tactical Tanto and tactical katana. Those were not after the factory fire, it went away for probably 7-8 years, and I finally said we need to bring this product back because there's lots of people out there making off similar things that were similar to it. And I said, why don't we just bring it back? It's like, well, it's going to be twice the price. Well, they'll appreciate it twice as much. What do I, because all the tooling was lost in the fire. So we brought that back. And everybody's loving it again. So that's why I want to bring the Kami back, because everybody loved it. So why not? But
I see somebody is heckling you to send me a katana full of swirly mitsudomes. That's
I'm sorry, I missed it. What?
The Wind and Thunder. It has or the Wind and Thunder. Somebody said it's got a lot of swirl.
Oh yeah.
The handle has the moan on it that
okay.
I tend to lean towards.
Oh, I like the Wind and Thunder. It's a beefy cutter. It's good, but it's not my favorite.
Which one is your favorite? I don't know if I asked you this last time.
Oh, Sea Wave right now is my favorite.
Is it the look, or is it the whole package, how it feels?
It's the whole package. She's got looks and curves in all the right places. Lights at the touch, feels good in my hands. Cuts me deep.
Is there any sword that you've had in the past that you didn't expect to really like, but you wanted to bring home?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Doesn't have to be a sword. I know you sell knives too. Is there anything that just is you maybe thought like, this is kind of like other people like it. It's probably going to sell, but that's not for me. And then you picked it up and you're like, no, that's for me. I want that.
The Yanone. Did we talk about that last time?
I think I
don't think
asked
we
you
talked
about
about the
products that
Yanone.
surprised you, but maybe not, I don't think I asked it the same way. Yanone?
Yanone katana. It's a Dragon King sword. I absolutely, when I got the sample in, I was like, oh, great. Another black katana. I'm like, oh, just what we need. Another black katana. And then we got it out to do the test cutting. I'm like, oh my God, this thing is great. And there's actually, if you go to the website, you'll actually see the video of me cutting with it. I don't know what is up with the blade geometry on that sword, but man, I hate the handle. I will just say this. I think the handle is way too big. I told Frenchie, I said, I want to do this blade with a different handle on a different sword. But I said, I don't know what you did with the blade geometry on this one, but I hate the handle. It feels terrible in my hands, but man, it just is. And it's wasn't just the one. I've cut with several different others, and it is always cut well. So yeah, that one, I don't like the theme. I don't like the handle, but the blade geometry is phenomenal. And I'm going to knock this blade geometry off and put it on a different sword with a different theme, different handle radius, suka length, and you're never going to know which one it is.
Internal theft.
Yes.
Internal piracy. You're pirating your own stuff.
I'm going to be like certain rock bands. I'm going to knock off my own music with a different song title in a different key.
Yeah, I can see why you would think that, because I've had more than a couple swords myself, and after a while, like the black on white side, like it's if you haven't had a katana, it's kind of like in your head what the kind of cliche idea of what a katana looks like, and if that's what you want, then you probably want something like this. But after you've had a few of them, then you're kind of like, I want some other stuff. So I can see why that would be the impression. That's a good one though. So this is the one that caught you off guard as being.
Yeah, it was better than it looked. It's the only Dragon King sword with synthetics, which I don't know why that one.
Sometimes it surprises you what gets to you.
Yeah.
Are there any others that maybe aren't for you, but that you also found really surprising? Since I have your website up and I can pester you about it.
I'm trying to think outside the katana box. I don't know. I'm gonna have to ponder on that. You have to give me a minute on that one. I try and there's been a few things over the years that that surprised me.
You got full suits of armor. That's
yeah. Yeah, it's been one of my projects the last couple of weeks is relaying out the CAS site. But I don't know. I guess the SH-1010, the Damascus Godfrey Viking sword, I like it. I actually owned one for a while, then I got rid of it. I think it's just it's a beautiful sword, but my hands don't like it. It just doesn't fit me well.
My hands don't like any Viking sword.
Yeah, I'm very particular about a grip. If it doesn't feel comfortable in my hand, I don't want it.
Now, I just went on the website here and sorted by I looked at the European category, sorted by price, and there's some swanky armors up here that are a couple $1,000s, and that's not terribly expensive for a full suit of armor.
Yeah.
But on the katana side, you have katana that are, a couple $1,000s, but there's no European sword with at the same price point. Is that because the market isn't there and they don't sell, or
well, we used to have some pretty high the factory fire kind of did away with a lot of those. We used to do an Edward III sword that actually, it was a gold plated sword. It was one of the few remaining intact swords from antiquity. It was like it was a pretty high end sword. I would like to have brought that one back, but there was a lot of manufacturing issues. It had like rings on the handle that they were constantly coming loose. Um, there was a time when we did like silver inlaid rosewood stuff, and you know, I don't know if the wood wasn't cured right, and then the wood would shrink and the inlays would come out. I don't know. There's a lot of things that we've tried. And it's like, hey man, nice shot. Just did not
I,
produce.
I think you mentioned windlass before, and they recently come out with a line from the Royal Armories, and there does seem to be an appetite to, I guess I have no idea how well they're doing or not, but it did seem like a few of them went out of stock, so that sounds like a good problem to have.
Yeah.
And so it seems like there's an appetite to recreate like authentic pieces from museums or private collections. And
Sure.
one thing that I in my personal experience with windlass, God bless them, I've had a lot of kind of derpy feeling handles, and so if they're recreating a piece from a museum and like following specifications, there seems to be a lot of praise. Haven't held one myself, but seems to be a lot of praise for them, making these things right. But some European swords had really ornate file work, and like, the gold embellishments, like one very blingy piece, but there's some with intricate carvings and like little effigies mounted in the pommel, and nobody today does that. And nobody outside of CAS really seems to, like the Hanwei folks seem to really have the crispness that you would need in casting quality to do it really well. But I think you guys could make, if you found some museum examples that kind of leaned into some more intricate, unique looking handles that were still like, fun to move around. That may be worthy of pursuing on your, I'll tell you about it again in July. That's when you get to think about all the extra project ideas. But I could see Hanwei really succeeding there, because
One of my goals for Kingston Arms is to do what I would consider that a showpiece, kind of like this is how good we are at making stuff, and I don't care if I sell 10 a year, but we're going to make it. You know what I'm saying? That's what the Edward III was, and a couple of other medieval type swords we used to have in the Hanwei line. I think the only thing that really shines in the Hanwei line is that herringbone Damascus martial sword, the SH-2001, because that's a pretty tricky sword to make, and how they have to get that Damascus into that blade. It takes some skill. But yeah, I've talked about with Barry and Frenchie about doing a showpiece for Kingston Arms. Probably looking at something maybe Viking, potentially. I think that's kind of where our brains have landed on trying to do something that is kind of, we're bad. Reproduce this.
Tried the Sutton Hoo.
We did Sutton Hoo stuff with Hanwei. Factory Fire took that out. I'd like to get back to that. Like I said, it's just a matter of being able to.
That must have been a real son of a bitch to lose, man.
The tooling alone that was sad, because we did the Sutton Hoo helmet.
Yeah,
we did that. I think we might bring back that little axe. I'm thinking that axe might show up again if we can get our hearts right about the price on it. It might show up.
Is there something you wish you could make? You wish there was a market for?
My Little Pony katanas. Sorry, I'm not going to go down that road again. The guitar katana. I don't know, man. I it's there are things that I like that I know that will never sell. You know, it's just so obscure. Um, but then again, I never thought the modern katana from Dragon King was going to sell, and it's like our number one product right now in Dragon King.
Was that a your idea, or were you like, that's not going to sell?
Well, I'm going to tell you the story. You're going to hear it here first. So, Frenchie with Dragon King, he likes doing tantos, and as you can tell, we got like two kind of standalone tantos, and he had the modern tanto, and and Krista and I are like, I'm like, we're not doing a third tanto with nothing to go with it. And I said, okay, Frenchie, if you want to make this tanto, make a katana that it goes with. And we went back and forth. We hashed out the specs. I said, okay, you can make your tanto, but you got to do a katana. He made the katana, got the prototype, loved it. I didn't really think it was going to do much of anything, but they have come, the tanto and the katana have become like the best selling Dragon King products. So, and now we just came out with the wakizashi that everybody had to have to go with the tanto. So now you got a complete daisho set in the modern series.
Yes, you do, and I will get a chance to play with Ye Old Wakizashi. That's one that you sent me, so I have this guy to tinker with. Which, at a glance, already the Hanwei tactical katana and wakizashi. Now the wakizashi, I remember like went on closeout for $120 or something, and then I don't know if it was closeout. I remember getting one for around $120. That's what I can recall, and it I didn't like it because it did all the things in my mind bad. Like it, I mean, like if I'm gonna go camping, like I didn't want to have the necessity to clean it with a habaki. If I was gonna have a habaki, I wanted to be able to take it apart to clean it. And it seemed like an odd mix. And then when those were not available for a time, like some of them were selling for $600 online, and I think I made a video once where I was like, "What is happening? Why? I don't understand this. Why would this?"
Yeah,
I have this sword that I don't like.
It's not the worst sword.
No, it's not the worst
sword.
It's
Not my favorite. Let me just say
one.
that.
But this is, in my mind, strikes a better balance. Like the things don't rattle. So if I strap it to a backpack, it doesn't have the same connection mechanism, which I think might be if you do a version 2, like some way to strap it to a bag easily, because it's like a.
I think probably I think the part where you're not going to like it is you can't take the handle off.
It looks like I can unscrew stuff here. Are these placebo?
Yeah,
nuts?
I think. Well, it's the handle has an epoxy. It's glued on.
Okay.
It's not removable. Now we talked about making it removable, and I'm kind of on the fence about that. I don't know if I like that or not. So.
Yeah, I think if you're going to have a habaki where water is going to go down and get under there, then I would like to take it apart. But if you made that a bolster of like if you made it an integral habaki that didn't, and it just was like a beefier ricasso section, then all of a sudden it's really the cleaning factor. Like you get under there, and like also the habaki is copper, right? So it is going to rattle eventually, and I have no way of like dealing with it.
My concern with anything is, when people take it apart, especially something like that, they're not going to get it back together correct, and they're going to hurt themselves. Somebody's going to take a swing, they're not going to screw it back in tight, or they're going to strip the screws, and the blade's going to go flying and impale their kid or whatever. That's my nightmare situation. So
Yeah.
I mean,
But
unfortunately,
the APOC one came apart. The
well,
APOC.
that's a little different beast. I mean, that's two handle slabs. This is an encapsulated handle. So I don't know. I'm working on the next versions. Ah, there's Joe.
What's up, guys? You hear me?
Can't hear you, Joe. Joe as
Mike.
well has got some experience with the modern version.
Mic is on. My mic on, guys?
Yeah, you're there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sensei Scott is in the house. What's up, Sensei? I like that modern katana. In fact, I liked it from the first moment I saw it when we did that live together, and I'm like, ooh, what's that? And yeah, I didn't think I would like it as much as I do, but I do like it a lot. It's nimble, it's light, and a lot of people like the saya. People wish, actually, even Scott in the chat had mentioned that they wish that maybe Dragon King would maybe use that style, that thin style saya, on a couple more of their swords, because people love the whole configuration of that saya on the modern.
So you've made the tactical katana. Now you just need the steampunk version, the like lightsaber with a sword sticking out of it.
Maybe.
You know, like it could be your vape pen / sword. Your nightmare scenario is somebody puts the wrong kind of juice in there and gets so blitzed that they stick the wrong end in their mouth.
Coffee's hot. Still got to put a warning label on it.
This is the feedback I got from the modern. People wanting to maybe on future renditions to go with a through hardened and maybe like a Shinogi Zakuri type of architecture. Just, you know, it's kind of like a non-maintenance beginners type of sword. And I think that would kind of encompass both, because you'll have a through hardened, less temperamental, basically with bad cuts, and also a Shinogi Zakuri, because the Hira, I found that the Hira Zakuri, it's a great sword, but I found with the Hira Zakuri and being differentially hardened, it did have more of a tendency of being able to take a set. So maybe like on future renditions, something different there.
Yeah, I could totally see doing a through hardened blade on a modern. Like if anyone's going to bring something out camping, right, or buy a katana for whacking trees in the woods.
Yeah,
this is a prime candidate. So a through hardened blade, I think, makes sense. But I would personally keep the Hira. I think that that's the better cutting profile.
I like that. I do like that geometric though.
It just blows my mind to hear you say through hardened. I'm like, so you'll want to go backwards. In my mind, you want to take a step back.
Different strokes, different folks, right?
Yeah, just for certain people that I think that would work. For certain people that, I mean, I like differentially hardened. I love the look of it. I love, you know, having the real, you know, that's just me. But every once in a while, having a through hardened or a spring steel type of blade, you can kind of whack it around and not have to worry about it. It's kind of fun. You know what I'm saying? And people who are kind of getting into this particular sword are generally entry level. Oh, no maintenance or this and that. Oh, no Ito, I don't have to worry about anything. And I think that would cater to them a little bit better. I mean, that's the feedback I was getting though, from a lot of people.
I would see a through hardened blade as a step to the side. And I guess I don't know the customer for this. So if there are people that like want a katana as opposed to like a kind of an interpretation of one, then I can see how differentially hardened is, you know, a necessity. But if you're looking for a katana to go out in the woods and whack stuff, then unequivocally, like a through hardened blade is going to survive your stupidity better.
Yeah.
And so you know, when I think of the modern katana, I also think of something that like doesn't break. So, you know, or doesn't bend easy and like is, you know, relatively resilient. And maybe I'm wrong on that though. Maybe the customer is not somebody who's not buying a $20 machete and is instead buying a $400 katana to go have fun with in the woods. Maybe they're not glamping. I could be off on that. You may know the customer better than I do.
I don't know. I just find it interesting. You know, it's like with the like I was mentioning earlier, talking about the seasonal katana, everybody's like, oh, I wish it was forged. Now we're doing the actual forged blade from the through tempered. Now you're on this one, which has become like our most popular katana in Dragon King. And everybody's like wanting to go to, you're saying through tempered. I'm like, man, I don't know how I
Well,
feel
those
about
are different things, though. Like the Spring Sakura,
Right.
for example, is a really delicate, fun-feeling sword, right?
Right.
And if you want a sword that's got like a really nice floral suba, nobody else makes something quite like it. It's a very pleasant feeling sword to practice with. And so if you want something to cut with and that has a hamon and is a little bit more Japanesey, I could see why you'd also get requests to make it a folded blade or make it like a bougier version, because I could see how that would appeal to a practitioner, especially the Spring Sakura. I haven't had the autumn one. I think that's one from the season I haven't had. But the Spring Sakura, I had two of them at the same time at one point, and they were delightful feeling little things. But I see that as like people in the dojo using it, and like there was a Vietnamese guy that practiced with me, and he liked his Spring Sakura, and everyone that held one that practiced seemed to enjoy it. But the people that I knew that owned it were practitioners. I've never seen a modern katana in the dojo. But I could like, I brought the tactical wakizashi camping, I brought it out and like used it to split logs and do dumb stuff that you wouldn't do. And so I'd want something that would conceivably survive that better.
Yeah.
But that I would just think of the customers as different. And also I would venture a guess that there's maybe I don't know if it's the same, but with seems like there's a lot of really well made through hardened blades. And I don't,
Yeah.
do they have the same stigma of like, oh, that's cheap, crappy?
Well, I mean, it's not visually pleasing.
Yeah, this you would say is a visually pleasing sword in its current configuration.
Yeah, I mean the point of it is if we're gonna make a katana, with modern materials, if we're going to take this aesthetic leap, saying, okay, so if the samurai were around today, what would they be using? We got this tanto that's very nice, very well done, and it's got this modern feel to it. So when we develop the katana, and I'm thinking, okay, we're just going to take this on to the next level, and kind of figure out how it fit. But I mean, I like it. I mean, I get to see these swords every day. If I wanted to go and put a tactical walk and a modern walk in my hand, I know I sit there and I compare, and I'm going, I don't get it. I mean, I get it, and on one level as a knife and sword person, and then but I can see pros and cons in both.
Yeah, I wouldn't do away with it. I would maybe, if it's possible, to have it like Matt said, kind of like a side step. Like also offered in in a through hardened config or something like that. But either way, I mean, people are loving the damn sword. I mean, I know a lot of people that basically have gotten into the Waki, the whole set. You have the Tanto as well, right? It's a whole set now, right? Yeah.
The only thing that I might I don't know how feasible this is, right? But you've got like one medallion on here. It'd be kind of neat if there was a way to change it, like I know it's hokey, but like a charm bracelet, right? Like I know I go to the My Little Pony katana all the time, but if I want to put a My Little Pony on there, goddammit, then I want to be able to go and like have my little insert to put My Little Pony in there.
He wants an option to have his swirly Misodome to be possible.
All right, you caught me, Joe.
Yeah.
That was it.
So that's what he's getting to. We understand, Matthew. We understand.
I know.
Your infliction.
I thought I could sidetrack you with My Little Pony, but you caught me in my ruse.
Matt, pimp my katana.
That's you're Patrick the Sword Guy. I'm Matt, pimp my katana. Jensen. That's Kratos. Thank you for the super chat. By the way, the Sea Wave Tonto. I will bring it up on screen here. I'm sorry, I'm sucking at chat.
I've been good this time. I've been trying to actually engage.
Yeah, you've been responding. You've been multitasking, and that's because you're not sick as a dog this time around, Patrick.
Well, it helps when you don't have the plague. But
no, you have a Tonto for Sea Wave? It's not coming up.
What?
I thought Kratos was asking me to bring up the Sea Wave Tonto, but I don't see you
There's
have a
not a
Tonto.
Sea Wave Tonto. I threw it out in the chat.
I gotcha.
I said, do we need, because he was talking about getting a set, and I thought, well, do we need to do a Tanto?
I think that's
I think
a
I
vote
think
for
I have
yes.
a new product development project next week when I get home, back to work.
Would you, if you did a Sea Wave Tonto, would you do a little Suba on it, or would you?
No,
No.
nah.
Like a big part of what makes the Sea Wave thing for me is the Suba on there, but it'd be kind of neat to integrate it differently. Like,
You know, one thing I love about Frenchie and Dragon King is I can throw him whatever crazy idea that we come up with, and he'll run with it.
That's cool.
okay, swirly Matsudon katana. I'm just saying.
Matsudo.
Yep, we've got
With sprinkles.
I like it. I like
Yep,
it.
that's that's what you need to do. I'm
Well,
telling you.
we've been
you will
telling
sell
Matt he
literally
needs to
ones of
design his
those.
own sword for years now. So maybe this is where he's going to start.
You will sell at least one of them.
I am working on the next in the modern series, but
Cool.
I can't tell you exactly what's happening yet because I don't have anything yet.
Okay.
I don't have anything in hand, metaphorically and literally yet.
Well, I do think the idea of the modern katana, that like the Hanwei Tinker line, a lot of that as interchangeable parts, and people can take them apart and slap different things on them. And some folks have 3D printed different fittings to fundamentally change that sword and make it a little bit more of their own. If there was a way to, I don't know, somehow leave a little space in there for you to have a swap outable version of a decal. I know it sounds hokey, but
I'm gonna send you a sticker.
I don't know about a sticker, but like if the Manuki had some sort of peg or locked in a different way where you could change them out, little communities spring up around that stuff, and there's 3D files to print things, and it would also give you a chance to sell a few accessories if you sold them in Swirly Mitsudome or My Little Pony formats. Just throwing that out there. I'm trying to make you sales over here, Patrick.
Yeah, making me sales are easy, but actually making it happen is another thing.
Options are tough. Options are tough. Options are good for us, but options are tough for you guys. You know,
just trying to make the world happy one sword at a time.
I like that. I'm going to use
what sword has given the most joy out there? Is there one that gives, like, people consistently respond that they absolutely love or are constantly pining over?
I have my favorite.
We'll talk for a minute, Joe. Tell me your favorite.
My favorite is the Practical XL. That's my go-to sword. That's the sword I just kind of beat the shit out of. Given the fact that I don't hit it against the croquet stick of freaking doom over there, I don't do that. But everything else under the sun, I have done with that sword, and it's got sets on it. It's got chips. I've fixed them. I've sharpened it up. I fixed it. I bent it back, and the damn thing keeps on going. I got to tell you, it's a strong sword. I love the damn thing. I really do.
Yeah, the XLs they've earned their place in the sword market for sure.
And I'm actually thinking about getting another one just to keep it on the side and just to have it, when that one finally breaks down, I'll have another one on the side. But I think it's that good of a sword that I think anyone, it's just a great sword to have and own, and being able to be tough with. And like you said, tatami cutter, I mean, it's a great tatami cutter. It really is. I mean,
careful, Joe. That was the exact logic that got me 10 bamboo mats deep.
Yes, the bamboo mats. Yes, I still want a bamboo mat as well. Absolutely.
I loved it so much. I wanted to have a backup for when I inevitably did the stupidest thing possible and broke it. And
yeah, but you're funny though, because you're one bamboo mat. You keep on saying how there's no other one like it in the world, and it's just the weight distribution of it and stuff. It's just perfect for me. But then you went to another one. It's like it's not the same, So you have that one first bamboo mat that is just your ultimate best sword, right?
Fire. Yeah, I think you had a pre-factory fire bamboo mat.
Mm-hmm. Pre-fire.
It's like 8 ounces heavier. So if I've had at one point, I had 3 or 4 bamboo mats all at the same time. And Patrick, I won't lie, like I've had swords that are ludicrous amounts of money, and I still like the bamboo mat. Like if people say which one is your favorite, I still say the bamboo mat. Now mine has been dolled up a little bit, and if there was a swirly Mitsudome fairy, it's been sprinkled up with and redone. I spent, I don't know, $1,500 redoing it for my bamboo mat that I think I bought for $200. But I really liked it, and I thought, well, I just want another one. I just want one so that when I break it, I have it. I have another one. And I think actually if I go to Bamboo Mat and I look on the website, I lost it. I'm pretty sure if it's still there, I wonder. There's a review from Matthew Jensen right here. I like the blade so much, I want to have a backup so I never have to do without one. The quote's on the website. You're using it to sell swords, and it's true. And I've tried, and none of them feel the same. So of the, I think at this point I'm up to 12 or 13 I've had afterward, and they all are much closer, like in a grouping together. And mine is about 8 ounces heavier than the average.
I want you to take very careful specs on that one, and send me all the specs. Take photos, get out a micrometer. I want all the details sent to me in my email by Monday, so I can send it over to Hanwei and say, you got to make this the way it once was. Otherwise, I can't get back online anymore and talk to Matt.
Now, in fairness, Patrick, I think everyone would agree that you have improved it and not made it worse. Most people, I think, would like the way it is currently because it's quite a bit more lively. The one that I have, when people are like, this is your favorite, and I hand it to them and they're like, huh.
Make me feel so
like,
good.
I see you're not trying to insult me, but it's okay. I know this may be just a me thing, But so I will absolutely do that. So you have an example. I can break out the micrometer. I may actually have measurements already, but I can certainly send it your way. However, before you do anything rash, do know that I think you may have already improved it, and sales may be improved from the new version because it feels quite a bit more fun in the hand, I think, to the average person, or even to the more intelligent person.
Well, one of my jobs is I go back and look, and I do go back and look at the original prototypes, and I want to compare it against the original prototype. I want to see how it's changed.
HSW 25 is closer to what kind of steel?
It's a great question. I wish I had an answer for it.
Or 2S, HWS2.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know other people's products to know or what it would be close to as far as steel type.
So as I recall, when the Lion Dog came out and the Bamboo Mat came out, they were made of some proprietary steel to Hanwei, and they did something
ancient Chinese secret.
It's made out of recycled iPhones. That's the secret.
There's some things they don't even tell us.
All right. You're quite a large fellow, Matt. What's heavy to someone else might not be for you.
You just call you fat.
I think they did. Hey, you 5-headed, dopey fat guy. You're pretty big. Not everyone else is having to swing that. Yeah. That's the nicest way I've been called fat today. But yes, that is the case. I am not a small guy, but I still have very delicate taste. So I still prefer smaller handles. I don't like it when things are overbuilt. I don't like when I have to when I pick up a sword and it feels like this is a thing I need to learn how to use. Which, in fairness, a lot of katana generally feel like they're not as like a cat's belger or the what I always say it wrong, Chijan. That was one that surprised me. The like integral or drop forged gen that Hanwei made. Some of those just feel really, instantly a part of your hand. But I remember when I pick up a Zweihander or something like that, I'm not Schwarzenegger. It does like I can't swing that around and be happy about it. It's not not fun for me.
What's your optimal suka size, Matt, for you that you're comfortable with?
It does depend a little bit, but usually 10 and a half. Usually 10. I like about a 31-inch blade and a 10.5-inch handle.
31-inch blade. Yeah, you're pretty tall. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, 31.
Well, let me rephrase. In order to, as I'm studying martial arts, right, and I'm trying to do the technique, I have a reach that allows me to not need to do sayabiki, right? And so that's the part where you're pulling the scabbard off of the blade, as much as you are pulling the blade out of the scabbard. And so there's supposed to be this movement that allows you to like draw and cut, and in order to like really do it well, you need to do this thing. You need to pull the scabbard off the sword. And I don't have to most of the time. And a lot of times I'm practicing with swords that don't require that I reach. And so I've developed some really bad habits. And then when I try to do it correctly, people are like, hey, you're doing it wrong and you suck. And I'm like, yep. And then they're like, you're still doing it, Matt. You have not sucked any less. Please stop sucking. And I'm like, I got you. And they're like, nope, you still obviously are not getting it. And I'm like, God damn. Like, you get used to doing something, you develop the muscle memory, and then you stop. So I'm trying to practice with a little bit longer sword, because you don't, if it won't come out, then you have to do the movement correctly. And so I find it to be a very helpful training tool, especially when I'm trying to like unlearn a bad habit. I have to be careful training with a really sharp sword, because unlearning on meat fingers is dangerous. But yeah, small hands, man. I don't know where that came from, but no, I don't think small. Here's where here you go. If you hold your hand,
it's the.
Have you ever played with the Raptor series, Matt?
The what?
The Raptor series. Have you ever played with the Raptors?
I've played with the Nambokucho, the Moroha, the Shinogi Zakuri, the something. Oh, my son got a hold of the lights. So if you put in a Google Assistant and have a 3-year-old and he hears you say, turn off the lights, turn on the lights, turn the lights this color. Yeah, it's neat. So this will be a fun rainbow effect going on now. And it's going to be great. This wasn't because I turned evil. This wasn't because your question made me mad because you called my hand small. And by proxy, my manhood. All right.
Well, I wanted to say the Raptor series is really good.
Before we start sparring back with the group chat.
Joe, where were you going with the Raptor?
No, I'm just saying. I think that's another great series that Hanwei has. That Raptor series. I've only played with the Unokubi Zakuri, and that's another really tough, just great sword. I mean, that. It's funny because that is probably the thickest, wide, the beefiest Unokubi Zakuri you'll find on the planet. I mean, that thing is a monster. I mean, you compare it to any other rendition of that Unokubi Zakuri geometric, and everything is just, it pales in comparison. That thing is a monster in that geometric. And it's got that long suka too. The scar is about 13 inches. And I think it's about a 29-inch blade. If I'm not mistaken, Patrick, I think it's probably somewhere around there.
It's hard to keep up with them all, buddy.
It's hard. I know. But I think it's about either 28, 29-inch blade.
You don't know the measurements on 1,000 products? What's the deal?
It's a big sword.
I'm such a slacker.
It's a big sword. I've sent that sword traveling around the country to 3 different people, and they all cut with it. And it went from here to up north to California, back to, it went all over the place. And the thing has been in so many people's hands because, everybody wants to try it. And it finally came back to me, and it's still, listen, no looseness, no rattle. Everything is great. The only thing I had to do with it is I had to fix up the Hibaki Saya fit. But other than that, it's been a great sword. It really has. Those are my 2 favorites from Hanwei.
You picked some good ones, Joe. The Raptor is a pretty durable one, and the Practical XL is a great one. I really like it. I'm kind of excited too that Dragon King has things like it. Patrick, is there anything that I'm missing on the Dragon King side that is an equivalent wide sword, but in a cost-effective kind of in the more entry price point?
No, but we need, not that I can think of right off the top of my head. The fletching is a pretty beefy sword. It's kind of in that entry level. It's got it's not like the Kawana Kojima, but it is how do I say it? It's not exactly in width, but it is in thickness. Fletching is pretty decent. I've cut with them all, so it's hard to, again, subjective. I don't know. There's some that'll surprise you. Maybe the Ogami might be one to look at. It's kind of beefy. It's kind of yeah. I've cut with the Warfire. That one's good. I've not really had a bad one in Dragon King that I've not really cared for, in the sense. Trying to think. I don't know. They make a good cutting sword, and they're all sharp. So I don't know how.
No, it's
I
not
have preferences. Let me just say I have preferences.
Yeah, I don't
sure.
I don't mean it around the just I'm looking for it. It seems like Dragon King has not a like for like, but they have on the high end of the Kami, you have something that has a bold looking sword with interesting scabbard features, and then also Horimono, and Dragon King has one. Hanwei has some folded steel stuff. Dragon King does. And they're not the same stories. They're not the same looks. They've each got their own like thing going on. But the Kawana Kojima looks a lot, looks like it would compete with the Tori XL, right?
Yeah.
And they seem to have similar profiles. And so I'm just curious if there's another option out there for folks that, maybe the practical is what they're looking for from a performance aspect. It's in their budget, but they want something with maybe Dragon King flair.
One of my projects is kind of having something equivalent in that XL like kind of. I know I'm using Hanwei terminology, but it seems what everybody seems to understand. So I'll speak of it in that term. My goal is to have something comparable on the Dragon King side that makes sense, so people can have those choices where it's a little bit it probably won't be multi-themed. It'll probably be a theme and just have different blade choices. So it's something that's been in development for a while, and I'm not quite ready to go to the GM and say, okay, we got to do this now. I don't think the time is quite ready, to pull the trigger on that stuff just yet. But there's a lot of things we can do, along those lines. But it's, again, a lot of it's timing, and right now, like as we were talking earlier before Joe hopped on, it's kind of katana sales are kind of soft right now overall, and I'd like to see a shift or an increased demand for something in that kind of performance series.
Sure.
In the market. Mm-hmm. There doesn't seem to be, I've not seen it yet, but.
Well, you proved it with the modern katana series, right? If you build it, they will come.
Well, and that's kind of, that's kind of where my head is that, eventually it's something that we're moving towards. We're just not there yet.
Do you have a competition cutter?
That's definitely something I'm talking about right now. On both the more on the medieval side right now, and potentially on the Japanese side. I've had some conversations with Angus Trim this past week. I don't know if y'all know who Angus is.
No idea. Never heard the name before.
Okay. Yeah, he and I are talking. I've got some prototype. He's got some prototypes on the way to me. Hopefully, I'll have those on Monday. So, yep, lots of things in the works.
Well, what kind of competition cutter would you make for a European variety? It seems like the 18C is the default, but I'm not. I don't know if that's still the case.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know if I want to give it away or not. How do I slide out of this into the next question?
Next question. Okay, Messers. There's a few cutlasses in the and I seem to have borked the website. I can't seem to get it to move now. So
Don't break it. It's so hard to get it back up again.
the server is down. Yeah, my clicks aren't working. I'm clicking it as hard as I can. The Messers are another thing. So I've seen some cutlasses in the A-trim design Kingston Arms line of things. And I don't know if there's falchions or not, but are there any like two-handed Kriegsmesser kind of things in the future?
Yeah, actually, not necessarily Angus trim, but I do have there on the Kingston Arms side. We do have a what I'm calling a great sword coming out. Hopefully, I'm hoping to have it by this fall. We just approved the prototype a month or so ago. It's a beast of a blade. I've got some great photos of it. I'm excited for y'all to see it. I thought it was going to be here in July, but it didn't apparently make the boat. So it'll probably be the fall before we see it. It's not on the website or anything like that yet. But
this is what Scott was asking about, the Warfire.
Warfire, yeah. That looks like
it's pretty.
Highly recommended from Scott.
No, I did ask earlier if there were products that you maybe didn't excite you until you held them. No, I think last time you were on stream, I asked you if there were products you weren't expecting to sell well that then did, or but just things that maybe didn't float your boat until you got to see them in person.
Well, I think the modern series was one. I think I thought I answered that. I wasn't sure if it was going to do anything or not.
I had a feling that thing would take off as soon as I saw it. I don't know. There's something about it that I feel like the market needs something like that, because everything is going. And it's even the way I presented on the video. It's like everything's going tactical in the knife world, and it's just probably around the right time to basically go that whole tactical route, low maintenance survival. Pick it up and go and cut up. On the katana world. And I think that's probably how people are seeing it. But besides that, I mean, have you played with the walkie yet, Matt?
Yes.
How's it feel to you? I haven't had the walkie, but
I like it.
It feels great, right? I mean, you have control. It's light and nimble, but has the right amount of weight where you can. It's not like haphazard. It's like you have. It's light and nimble, but it has the right amount of weight that you can really get a nice cut in. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed using it, cutting with it, swinging it around, besides the fact of how it's built. So
I think that's easier to run into with the wakizashi, right? So you had a katana, if I recall from your video.
Yeah.
And so I find that if a katana surprises you in terms of the way it moves, like there's just more room to be impressed or depressed, I guess.
Yeah.
With a wakizashi, like you can make them pretty chunky, and they still, because of their size, they generally to me feel like I can do what I need to do with them. Some of them obviously are more like a stick or less like a stick,
right?
But at the same time, this is nimble. I just when I saw it, I was thinking that, hey, it has a little bit of the little extra zazziness with the Minuki that were put on there. I can see how that's like an embellishment that was important to katana and that was on there and don't necessarily appear to have a reason. And the same is true here. And I kind of like that tie-in. I thought the handle was well made and fit in my, just generally like was ergonomic and felt like it wasn't gonna, rattle my fingers apart, or there was nothing that was gonna bite me. But I also thought it would come apart, and so like there were things that I liked about it that I didn't like about the tactical. And that's when I'm comparing it, I'm thinking of the Hanwei Tactical or the other emulations of that kind of tactical wakizashi that I've had over time. And a lot of times they like rattle in the scabbard, and if I'm out in the woods, I don't want to like walk around and hear my scabbard rattling with the blade inside of it and make a bunch of noise. It's going to be wet. I'm going to bang it into things. It needs to be like durable and hold up. And I haven't gotten a chance to do much other than swing it around, do some basic cutting stuff on it, but I haven't pushed it at all yet. And so I will eventually.
Curious to see how that works. Scott, Scott, you cut with the walkie. What did you cut with it, Scott? If you could put it in the chat, I'm curious. I'm curious to see how that works, because when you push that thing, I want to see how it works.
I'm using it for food prep right now. It's doing great. You can basically put all the mayonnaise on. That's knives are the other one, Patrick. How much of CAS is like swords, and how much of it is knives?
The Citadel knives are beautiful. Have you seen them?
I've drooled over them.
Oh, they're amazing. I absolutely love the Citadel knives. They're outrageous, beautiful.
We're diving more into knives, hopefully, this year. I can't quite say anything just yet. Hopefully, when we do this again in a couple of months, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about it. We got some knives coming out for APOC, and that probably be making their debut at Blade Show. So I don't want to steal Blade Show's thunder.
Okay, don't do that. Yep, I can't blame you.
Oh, so let's talk about Blade Show. You got now. I don't think it's in the cards for me this year. I know it's killing me. I got just things coming up, personal things that have to be taken care of, and I don't think I can make it. And it's killing me because I really, really was looking forward to it. But what do you got going on? What are you looking to have the same type of setup? Are you improving not improving? Are you bringing anything more than what you had? Because you had a pretty big setup there last year.
Yeah, actually, if you walked into the CAS warehouse right now, you would see the Blade Show setup.
Oh, dude. Okay, great.
So I was even going to ask you, is there something you wanted me to bring? And now you're not even going to be there.
I'm not closing the book yet. I'll know if I end up going, I'm going to end up driving, because I'm not going to get the flight last minute. It's going to be crazy expensive. I may end up driving and just drive down and just, for like a day and maybe get there on Saturday if I end up going at all, and then just come back that night or whatever. But I'll keep in touch with you. I didn't close the book yet, but right now it doesn't look good.
I'm trying. I don't know if I'll be able to go. I've never been to Blade Show. Everyone tells me that that's stupid, so I'm trying to rectify it. But it's not a great time for me either. However, there's a trip to Atlanta that I've been putting off for about 8 years. And that's because I don't like to travel. I don't like it. I don't like doing it. And I've needed to do it for work for a long time. So I've kind of been like, hey, there is a date in June that I will go to Atlanta.
Just happens to be 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Yeah, well, yep. That's it. Now the thing is, I'll have to. I will have some obligations that will probably keep me away from the show for the full day, but I'd be able to at least pop through and look for the big long ones, because a lot of what Blade Show has is really, really interesting to me, but I really want to see swords primarily. So it seems like that's
there's a lot of swords. I mean, you obviously had the biggest display, but there were a lot of even just, what's interesting about Blade Show, you have a lot of private small makers that come in with a little sword set, but they got some nice stuff. It's not like it's interesting, and you'll find a lot of little. The show is huge, man. I mean, you're gonna walk in, and it's very overwhelming. I mean, predominantly knives, of course, but there's a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of stuff to see. I think you owe it to yourself one day. But
Joe,
know
you
what?
haven't seen my closet. There's Blade Show, and then there's Matt's closet.
There's
And
Matt's
so,
You know what kills me about Blade Show is that back in the day, we begged people to come to the show. We used to get like huge stacks of passes that we would mail out to people and just beg them to come to the show. Now you got people lined up around the block to
Yeah.
get in.
yeah.
So to me, it's like night and day how the Blade Show has changed, and I knew there was something radical had changed because I was walking in with like a drink or some drinks in my hand, and they open up the door, and I about get trampled.
Yeah.
Having people running
Yeah.
into the show,
Yeah.
like it's
Last year
Black
was
Friday.
different though, because last year was because we had COVID and
Mhm.
all of and there was so many years that people didn't go. It was like it was kind of a buildup. So last year, it just exploded to get out there. So last year was unusually a large show, but I think it's gonna be the same thing this year. From what I hear and from what I know what's going on, it's gonna be pretty big.
Well,
is
we're gonna have some interesting things at the show. We're gonna have a little different product set up. Probably not as many knives. I don't know if I don't even know if we're bringing any other than the new APOC stuff. Hopefully it'll be here.
is Blade Show one of those things that like I've already missed the boat on buying tickets for, or is it?
No, I can
you could even get them. You could get them at the door. You could you could buy tickets right there.
Joe will send you a link to some discount.
I have a link if you want to go. Yeah,
it's
thank you to Patrick. Yeah,
lined up around the block always makes me nervous because I'm
Oh no, that's just the freaking people that want to be the first people to step freaking foot in there, maniacs. Okay. That's the people that want to say we're the first people that walked into Blade Show. They got their phones and the YouTube going on and shit. Oh, we're the first ones in. I'm gonna go to this thing. Also, because a lot of people that are looking to buy and get the best deals, they want to get in there first so they can get to those tables.
And then they come to the CAS booth.
Yeah, and then they yeah.
What are the best deals at Blade Show? Are they're people just selling stuff for less than it should be? Are there special deals if you go into Blade Show where they're cheaper?
Well, it depends on what you're buying. I mean,
depends on what you're buying, and the best deals you're going to get is the last day of the show, believe it or not.
Yeah,
because that's when people don't want to take it home; they just want to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the custom guys, some of them will sell out before the end of the show and they're gone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it really depends on it depends on how much cash you bring.
Yep.
Or how much you got on your card.
Yeah, I know some people, some knife makers, some private knife makers that came in with a stash. A good friend of ours, Jed Hornbeak, got some great stuff. Private knife maker. He's a knife maker in the States, and he came in with stuff. I think he sold out by Saturday. Sunday he couldn't even stay anymore because he sold out of all the stuff. Everybody bought everything off the table. So that it can get like that where people just go in. Work Tough Gear. In fact, Work Tough Gear had a big display. There was one guy that went to Work Tough Gear and says, "I want to buy everything on this table." And he's like, I can't sell. And this is Friday. He's like, I can't sell you everything on this table. I still got to do a show. I got to be here till Sunday. You know what I'm saying? But literally people want to go and just buy everything. It's just insane,
Well, I promise if somebody comes to the CAS booth and wants to buy it all, I promise I will make you a deal that you can't refuse.
I'll go home. Oh man, that's funny.
I just have a mental image of you, Patrick, of just being like counting the bills, and then be like, "All right, fucking peace, I'm out. Take all this shit, I'm gone."
Yeah, I'm going home early.
Would not hurt my feelings in the least.
I'm gonna go get myself a hot dog, and I'm out. That's okay.
Hitting the subway at the bottom of the escalator, and I'm gone.
Yeah, I have not. I've never been to Blade Show, so I'm seeing if it can be arranged. and then maybe I'll have an excuse to go to Atlanta more often. I've looked and I'm like, oh, that looks like an interesting thing to do, but it just never quite works out.
Well, if you are definitely going, you have to go. I have to go when you're going. I have to make sure that I'm going to be there.
You have to go, Joe.
So it's
I'll try to let you know
you gotta
if I have travel plans in the future.
I'll figure it out.
It's funny because travel is I don't like to do it, and so with my daily life, and my real guy job, it's pretty seldom that I want to travel, and so most people really like to do it, and there's always it's always a little bit of a fight if you want to travel, but I never do. So if I'm like, I gotta fucking go somewhere, they're like, go.
Well, Patrick, you got a short drive, right? You got probably like 5 hours maybe or something like that?
Me?
Yeah.
No. It's
Not
like
even.
2.5.
2.5, right? Yeah, that's not even that far.
Yeah,
that's not bad for you.
Yeah, it's not that far for us, fortunately.
Yeah.
I wish you guys had been around when we actually did the sword show at Shot, after hours after SHOT Show in Vegas, because that was back in the day. That was the thing. But is there
as many swords around at Blade Show as there was at the separate sword show?
It's still, I mean, not really, but I mean, Atlanta Cutlery, museum replicas, they're there. There's us. There's a few others. But to me, I guess the best way to describe it, you get to hang out with all your industry friends. It's like a big clubhouse meeting.
Do you all get along? Or are you like, that fucking guy?
For the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all professionals. Come on now. I might say something under my breath when they walk away.
Well, I got to tell you, Patrick, when I approach you, a guy out of nowhere, out of the blue, and I says, Patrick, I says, you mind basically maybe doing like, we'll talk about your swords. So you were very accommodating. We did it. We had some good shooting sessions. I think you did well. Very polite. It was good.
How has that been from your perspective, Patrick, the rise of the influencer? Like, I realize, I'm a 5-headed weirdo from the internet that you're talking to right now. And, like, you won't offend me, though. Like, I'd have to imagine it's been a transition from people interested in Blade Show, maybe journalists talking that are making an article for a publication or a magazine. And now there's some guy that shows up and is like, I'm a YouTuber. Show me some knives. Like, is that?
I don't think it's really all that different. If it was 20 years ago, we'd have to respond to something that somebody said on Sword Forum. It's the same thing. It's just a different format. It's the same. I don't know how to say it. Without
same shit, different day. I think is the.
It's the influencer. I don't know if that. To me, I don't know how to say it. It's interesting. I like to have interesting conversations. This is why we're doing this. It's an interesting conversation, and I get to respond, to some credible feedback. There's a lot of them out there that just like, this sucks or this is junk. Well, there's a lot of qualifiers that go, what makes it junk? What was your expectation out of a $200 sword? What was your expectation out of a $500 sword? What was your expectation out of a $3,000 sword? Because we sell them all, So if you're expecting a Citadel perfection on a $500 sword, then you're the one that's skewed, in my opinion. There's certain things that you can expect at different price ranges. So when I respond to people on social media, I have to figure out where they are. You know what I'm saying? I got to figure out how much do they really know about what they're talking about. How much do you know about what it is that you bought? Because a lot of times when people buy stuff, they don't know what they bought.
That's very true.
Yeah, it is a weird mix. Now, I'm not in the sword selling business exactly, but through the trading and this, that, and the other on YouTube, I've amassed a collection and traded or sold it or done some thises and that's to keep different pieces coming in to play with. And there are absolutely times where I'll talk to somebody who's picking something up and they know 10 times more than I do about it. They've probably forgotten more than I'll ever know about it. And then there are also times where people like clearly don't know what they're buying at all. And the last questions that are like, hey, like, don't hurt yourself, or like, hey, you're probably going to not destroy it, but like what you're suggesting would tell me that you will likely damage it, or that your expectations will be met with disappointment. A lot that happens in the realm of selling Nihonto. Actually, I don't do a lot of it, but I've had pieces and sold them, and a lot of times people are expecting the same things that we would look for maybe in a modern replica to be on an antique piece. And they're like, hey, the Subaru rattles. And I'm like, yep.
I think one of the biggest issues that I have, and I'm going to kind of respond to to the chat a little bit on this too. Dragon King, Hanwei, Kingston Arms, the handmade stuff. I don't think people really understand what that is. If they think handmade means perfect or machined perfect. I mean, to me, handmade means there's imperfections that shows that these things aren't stamped out in a factory. You know what I'm saying? It's the imperfections or the little nuances that make them different from piece to piece that really show handmade. So when it's like, oh, mine was a quarter of an inch longer than it said on the website. Oh, so I should charge you a little bit more because you got a little bit more sword, right? Is that how that works? I don't know. Or I'll give you a discount if it was an eighth or a quarter of an inch less. I don't know. So, there, and I talked about that. I don't want to rehash from the last video. I don't think people understand how tough it is, when you're making handmade products we have parameters to get things in. And we want them, we try to get them as consistent as possible. Within, we got certain tolerances that we're trying to stay within. The bamboo mat. We want the bamboo mat to be consistent from sword to sword to sword to sword. That there's different guys making those blades. It's not unlike the L6 where you got one or two guys that are the only ones doing it. You got 5 or 6 or 8 to 10 depending on the time of the year and whatever. They're doing certain things. There's going to be variations.
That's a fair point. Now, in fairness, Patrick, I've maybe painted a picture that the bamboo mat is a process that is out of control. I did make a plot chart at one point, and there's a pretty tight group of tolerance that is happening within. I would say they're within 2 ounces of each other if I look at the average. And there was one that was like 4 ounces lighter than the average, and then there's mine that's like over 8 ounces heavier. And when I say that, I do mean like the bare blade. So imagining like a 2 ounce spread is maybe more variation than you'd like to see blade to blade, just on the naked blade itself without any of the other handles and stuff. But yeah, like I have the outlier and fell in love with it. That's the kind of problem. And some of those I think were also pre-fire bamboo mats. So I've had some other ones in there that were also pretty old.
Yeah, buying a sword and particularly a katana is just not something you can do on a whim. You need to get educated, and a lot of buyers come into the market and they don't know what they're buying, and they don't know what to expect with what they bought, and that's okay. And that's why people like me are here to educate. I don't know if I said this last time. There's a guy called, his son's in martial arts, and he wanted to buy him a katana, that he could eventually go and, and use and learn on. And I mean, I talked to this guy on the phone for like 45 minutes, trying to say, well, what kind of martial arts does he do? Okay. So he's in Japanese. Okay. So okay. So, I mean, it's something, and by the time at the end of the conversation, it's like, now I will sell you a sword, or I will point you to someone that will sell you a sword, but you need to make sure your son doesn't cut his kneecap off with it. If you do, okay, as well as I do, you can hurt yourself really quick.
You sure
You
can.
don't know what you're doing.
Even if you do.
Even if you do, you can still hurt yourself. So
yep.
And some people are doing reckless things to try and hurt themselves, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, that's why we have warning stickers on everything now.
Yeah.
So I mean, I want, if you're going to buy, a Hanwei or whatever, enjoy it. Enjoy it what it is. Appreciate and understand, that the people that did it have a skill set that only, probably very few people in the world have. And a lot of the things that they're doing, have to be taught. There's not a machine, that there's people, that slide the handle on, the suka on a jig, and they sit there with their hands and they are wrapping this stuff for however long it takes. The guy who's polishing the blade, there's not a machine, if you go to our Facebook page, there's a post showing the guys at Citadel working on the new dragon katana, and it shows the suba in the vise, and the same and the handle and all that. I mean, now granted, that's a almost $4,000 sword, and I can't wait to show you the new one that's coming out right after the dragon.
Nice.
But that's even more awesome than that one. But
is that the swirly Matsudome? Is that what that one's going to be?
This is totally different thing. And with my Little Pony sprinkles on it. But
awesome.
Just to me, and I was going to say that y'all said something earlier that fired off in my head. You can get jaded on my side of the fence, fielding complaints or people talking about quality and things like that all the time. And
when you go through 10 phone calls like that a day, yeah, I mean, I can see how you could get jaded.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I try to remember, that, it's only one or two people, that are, that we run into. Most of the customers seem to understand what they buy, and a lot more go out than come back. There's way more going out the building. Very few are coming back. So I think I have to be careful a lot of times, when we're talking to the influencers, things like that, because it's very easy for me to say, it's like, well, what about this sword? Or what about what about this issue? What about that issue? Well, as we talked about in the last video that we did, it takes me a year and a half sometimes to get issues fixed, because we've got, a year's supply sitting on the shelf that has to be sold before that revision or whatever tweak fix, unless it's something horrendous and we got to do we've never had a recall. But if something was horrendously dangerous, we would yank them all back, because, safety is important, especially when it comes to swords. But, it takes time, to tweak things. I think I mentioned last time, we had a redesign, something you would never see on like the Hanwei, the side sword. It's an internal thing. You would never see it unless you took it apart. And even if you did, you probably wouldn't even know what it is if you saw it. We've sent the revisions, and hopefully in the next batch that comes through, that they'll have this issue fixed. And that most people would never, unless you were using it on a consistent basis, would never know. So
do you find that do you find people are getting smarter? Like, I don't want to say like influencer stuff necessarily, but the accessibility of information is more abundant. There's been years of availability of forums. There's product reviews on Amazon. It seems like everybody is, you can walk around Blade Show probably and see, I'm at a CAS booth and I see a thing, or you're at a Ren Fest and there's a sword for sale. You can look it up and see what other people have to say about it right away.
Yeah.
Has that made people more educated on the subject, or have you found them to remain pretty much as consistently stupid over the years?
Well, I would never call somebody stupid. I would definitely call them unlearned about or uneducated in the product. But no, I'm if I get a phone call, I'm generally pretty sympathetic. I do really care, and I guess that's Paul Chen where he's rubbed off on me. I want them to be happy with what they get. And if they're genuinely dissatisfied, send it back. If you didn't, if it's our customer or somebody, and I know it's one of our, like RVA Katana, I know they're one of our customers here on the chat. If they're just unhappy with it, just send it back. Just send it back. If it's in 30-day, whatever their return policy is, just send it back. Don't even worry about it. But I think I'd like to think people are getting smarter because of information, but I also think there's so much information out there. They don't understand a lot of the information that they're reading, and they kind of joke about it. When I'm on the Cutlery Corner Network, it's like, is it full tang? No, it's not full. I don't know if you've ever read my "Is it full tang" thing on the CAS website. I have a rant that I wrote, and I had to whittle it down to what's actually on the website. Talk about getting jaded and bitter. If I think about it, I'll send you the full version where I completely go off. But people want to use when they interact with us, they want to use terminology they don't really understand.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, and on the Japanese side, there's a lot of terms. I know a lot of terms, but depending on people will throw some terminology at me, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm thinking to myself, I think I know what he's talking about, and I've got an entire diagram, on the side of my desk just in case I need to reference, or they pronounce it wrong, they'll get them shitted domes on there.
Yeah.
You shot at domes or.
I've gotten the same thing. So I think people would say I probably specialize in Japanese swords, and there's been a few times where somebody has said like, "Hey, do you know lots of stuff about swords?" And I'm like, I think a fair amount, and they'll be like, "What's a habuchi?" And then I'm not sure on that one, and they'll say, "Well, live and learn." Oh, my camera battery died, so I'm going to mute. Talk amongst yourselves while I figure it out.
Oh, is that why you froze?
Yeah, I was about to say, he's like.
I think that people are kind of happy with the selections that they have today. There's ever since I put out that video, a lot of people came out of the woodwork saying how there's really no reason to look for a Nihanto or look for like something made in Japan, because there's such an abundance of good manufacturers now coming out of China, coming out of Korea, that are really doing some good work. So I think people are normally more or less very satisfied with the state of the market in terms of the options that they had. That has been really increasing as the years have gone by. I think within the last 3 years, people have been stepping up their game a little bit and starting to compete and wanting to produce some good products that they're bringing to the market and stay in a competitive, because now they see the competition is there. They see that people want the quality, they want it. And I think people are stepping up to kind of cater to the marketplace. And I think it's showing, and people are pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
Well,
I like to think that the end consumer is getting smarter because of information.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, I think there's that we want to sound smart and use terms and things like that a lot of time, and it is a pet peeve of mine. Well, is that katana full tang? Well, no, sir, it's not. You cannot see the profile of the blade on both sides of the handle. That's a knife term.
Well, these are knife people. Yeah, these are just knife people kind of trying to bring that same terminology into swords, and it just doesn't quite work very well.
No, it doesn't translate.
No,
I have to. Then I got to take 5 minutes and explain. Well, it's an encapsulated tang.
Right.
Blah blah blah. I got diagrams. I'll send you a link. Go read up on this. This will help you. And and most people, most people when I talk to them, they're willing to be educated. It's those that think they already know everything and that
don't want to hear
can't talk to.
Right.
That's the problem. And everybody's entitled to their opinion, and that's fine. And I like I said, I don't know everything. I know it's hard to believe, but people ask me, well, how does it compare to this one? Well, I've never seen that sword before. Go ask Matt. Matt's apparently got them all. He's had all varieties, shapes, and size. He would be.
There's at least 12.
Ask Joe. He's seen them all. Every.
I'm in the process of moving right now. You can see I have bare walls, nothing anywhere, and I have probably a fraction of a % of the amount of weaponry compared to Matt. And I know he just did a move not too long ago. How the hell did you do it? Because it's overwhelming. I mean, just packing that stuff up and moving it, and it's not anything you could just kind of throw. You can't take the damn swords and throw them in a freaking crate and carry them out the door. You got to wrap them up. You got to say it, and depending on how far you're going, you got to make sure they're lubricated and they're wrapped and they're comfortable and they're not going to,
ride them.
No riding swords here. No.
Wait a minute. How are you transporting them?
It's a family show here.
I think we might have done it quite a bit differently.
It's a family show here. All right.
Are you smuggling?
There might be children watching.
Yes.
So you need to make sure they're cleaned and oiled. There's quite a bit. So I had I didn't want to put them on a trailer or in like a truck where they would bounce around. I wanted to be able to like control the drive, and so
right.
And also I figured out how many of them I had around too. That was also quite a shift, because some break, there's parts here, I store them there, and then I got into the new house and needed to like consolidate them, and I was like, I need lumber racks. I need industrial shelving. They don't make racks for people like me. They make so yeah.
We're making some.
I don't think I ever mentioned it, but it's a couple hundred. I have a couple hundred swords. That's it's not quite the CAS Iberia warehouse, but that's a considerable amount. I have more stock than some shops. Maybe not RVA Katana. They may have more than I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not my fault. No, it is. I totally.
Sure it isn't.
I'll start sending a return label for samples. How about that? So it doesn't burden your home with so many products.
I wouldn't consider it a burden, but I will happily send them back if you would like them back.
No.
You may not want them back when I'm done with them.
No, not after you do your destructive testings.
I got to talk to you about the destructive testings another day, Matt, because I think I'm getting into. I have to get into that. We'll talk about my little situation coming up another day.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's I've moved away from it a little bit. So like there was some weirdness, right? So when I started doing YouTube videos, it made me feel really weird to have anything of value at the end of a review. It just, did it mess up my objectivity? I don't know. It made me feel weird to have something that could be construed as a payment at the end of doing any kind of review. And I could send it back, but a lot of times vendors didn't want them back. And I could give it away, but giveaways are not my thing. I think it attracts the wrong kind of attention, I think. And it's also quite risky. And there are like people that go out and make money from suing YouTubers that don't know how to do giveaways legally. So just not something I wanted to play. And so I thought the best way I could contribute to the conversation was just by breaking every single sample I got. That way I didn't feel weird. and anyone that found it of value had the information there. And then I was done with it. But I ran into some problems doing that. One, it became like you're breaking things that are not particularly helpful to like nobody's buying a Dragon King Sea Wave katana to cut metal poles. Nobody's doing that. Nobody is curious. Nobody's thinking, you know what, this is, I think, going to last longer than the Practical XL that is, built like a tank. No, that's not a question that I think people are really curious about. There may be some like, general curiosity about like, I wonder how many licks it'll take, but not really. It's not helping inform a customer. They're not, somebody that was on the fence about buying it isn't going to be persuaded by seeing me destroy it. That doesn't mean I won't use it hard or that I won't cut like branches or do things that are debatably abusive. But there's a line between like you could encounter this in a battle, or this could be similar to a bad cut on a tatami mat, which it could encounter if you're trying to use it properly. You're whacking it into a metal pole with the specific intent to break it. So now I don't do it on everything. So the Tiger and the Sea Wave, I don't think that anyone is particularly curious about how much damage those can take, at least in a way that will influence their decision on buying it. Right. But the APOC katana, I think there's a lot of people that are like, I want to go in the woods and fuck shit up. How much can I do that? And seeing like, hey, Matt beat the shit out of wood and he threw it at trees, and then he hit the croquet stake and it didn't break right away, and it took like a few whacks. And I've seen really big Chungussy swords that broke before that. That little sumbitch is strong. Like, yeah. I think that helped the conversation, and conceivably some people might look at that and say, hey, I have more confidence in spending my money on it now. Maybe I would have gone a different direction. Maybe I wouldn't have been sure, but like for $200, I can get a whole lot of sword for not a lot of money and go have some fun with it. So yeah, I'm just, it depends on the sword. I don't think the Gladius, I don't think people are going to be particularly curious. But the Wakizashi, I think, is doomed for death. That's I think that's a thing people are going to want to do. Yeah, I think people are going to want to see like, hey, if I go out in the woods,
to be honest with you, I think, I couldn't do it myself, but I don't have the heart. But I'm
Joe's curious.
I'm actually kind of curious.
Yeah. See,
just one of them. Just one of them. Just one of them.
This is where I'm going to try to meet you in the middle. Now, on things like a rapier blade, like for fencing, I could see you want to bend it to see how much flex it's really got. But a katana, I mean, unless you're planning on fighting the Terminator in the future, and you got to know, can you run it through the T-800 to save mankind and John Connor? That's the only real reason I could think you would want to really do a destructive test. Now, I mean, I don't know. That's y'all's world. I'm just saying, man, I don't know that guy at the factory.
I wouldn't do it with mine.
3 hours working on that sword, grinding out that blade, and the guy who spent 4 hours polishing it, you just wasted their time.
So I'll give you this isn't for everyone else. It's for Patrick and the folks at the factory. One, I'm hoping that the destructive test is helping the conversation, but I do want to add a note that like that is the end of the video, right? Before that, I show off all of that hard work, right, and all of those features, and I talk about using it in a way that a normal human being might, right? And then the objective is to show like, hey, not necessarily bending it, but like, is it going to survive being chucked? And there's a fair amount of people that would go out and try that themselves. And so hopefully me doing it tells people that this is not indestructible and your sword will be damaged, and results in fewer wasted times and angry phone calls to Patrick. And two, there are people that genuinely are curious about it, right? And so you say like fighting the T-800 in the future, kind of like to me, there are like 4 groups of people that I talk to that not that everyone isn't a unique and beautiful snowflake, but you have practitioners that see it as a tool. You have people that aren't like trying to do any kind of historic art. They're just, it's shits and giggles, cutting stuff for fun, general use, but not any like, I'm not needing to adhere to any particular guidelines, or like if the If it doesn't have a habaki, it's not a big deal, right? But it would be to a practitioner. And then you have like the zombie apocalypse folks, and then you have people that just collect and buy the things they like. Now, collectors are aloof, and whatever they happen to like, they like. But the zombie folks, you could kind of constitute the same end of days. If shit hits the fan, I want a weapon that I can reliably put my life on, right? If there's a time where I need this to work, I want to be absolutely sure that it deserves that trust. And in those situations, it's entirely possible that you're not going to be cutting things that the sword may be intended to cut. Somebody might be swinging a bat at your head, and you need a sword that can, block a bat, or at least is going to be pointy enough at the end of being hit by a bat to still be used or straightened out. It might be yeeted out of your hand, and you might need to run away and pick it up. And that's what throwing at a tree will show you. All of those things are like abusive, but folks want to know, like, can I really trust this thing, or is it going to shatter? And there's a lot of things that are built to look good, or to look that say like, hey, it's a well-built thing, and then it gets cold and shit falls apart, or it gets used hard once and then breaks at the hilt and flies back at the person's face. And unfortunately, some of that stuff just doesn't get exposed until you really, really push it to failure. But when it does, the objective is that time isn't wasted, that less people waste their time, that less people are going to do stupid things with it, that people that want to know if it's worth their trust will know it, and you'll get to spend more time making it. But yeah, that also, I hopefully do a fair job of showing off that time, which also takes me a lot of time. So
Sure. Well, the other thing that's scares me is some people will try to do this, don't do this at home, kids, kind of warning, because I'm going to see Matt next time we do a video is going to have an eye patch on, and and missing some fingers or something, or it's just it's going to be, I'm half the man I used to be.
You know what's funny? I just noticed when you put that video out today, was it today? How you had, what did you have to block the freaking sword chunks from hitting you? You had stacked up chairs at one point as a shield. Yeah. Do you remember? I didn't.
That sounds like a thing I do.
He had like a couple of stacked up like outdoor chairs that would act as a shield. So he would kind of shield himself in back of those chairs. So if there's any, broken knife pieces that would come to his head, it would kind of hit the chairs. That was actually pretty funny. I don't remember that.
Yeah, there's I'll usually wear like glasses, a fencing mask, and then I'm too fat for it. But there's like a ring mail shirt that would used to fit me. And so I'll wear that around my neck and heart, and then I'll try to wear something that like is going to be harder to fly back through, because when they bounce back, they have enough to like dig in if you're not wearing anything, but they don't have a lot of, like, if they encounter anything, they stop. So they won't bury themselves in like too deep if I have.
You need a police shield.
Yeah, so that's I've had a few like close calls that have taught me like, yeah, don't go at it with nothing. But also, like, shit is surprising, and I'll wear like anti-cut gloves, and usually a wrist, something to guard my main hand, because sometimes they fly back and hit my hand. But I do try to be careful, but still it's absolutely dangerous. It's not like I have some idea where they're going to go, but the thing is, I've had swords that just broke at the hilt or broke at a time that was surprising. And so there are things I'm expecting to happen. Like if I slap a tree, not expecting the sword to break. I'm expecting it to bend. I'm expecting like things to twist and rattle and bad stuff to happen. That would be a normal thing to happen. And sometimes I'm really impressed because it doesn't happen. I go and try to make a tree my bitch by slapping it, and the sword's like, yeah, where's the next tree? I'm fine. Not a problem, guy. Let's go slap some trees. And it's fine. And sometimes they bend and they twist and like rattle and stuff happens, and all that's fine. But sometimes they shatter, and that's not what I expect. And when that happens, it's kind of scary because the pieces fly in directions that you don't necessarily intend. Or sometimes they break at the hilt when you're doing normal shit with them. Yeah. Sometimes they go and try to cut into a branch or a tree, and the blade flies off. So it's all risky stuff. Hopefully people see that though and are like, hey, that was dangerous. There's a little meme of me, like I cut a piece of metal and a chunk of sword flies right past my face, and I have the slowest reaction time imaginable, where it's like, huh?
Like, yeah, that was hysterical. That was hysterical.
Yeah. And I have like safety glasses on, and you see like in slow-mo the thing just like straight up knife point right past my face. If I were just standing here, we would not be having this conversation. So I have since like taken more precautions about what I cut. Hopefully I'm able to control when the blade breaks, where it's going. I also like don't ham fist it all the time. And I try to slowly have a build up and, use as much force as I can in a way that I can predict the outcome. But it's still dangerous. And hopefully that comes through in the video. But yeah, maybe it isn't. I don't know, Patrick. I don't think that I can make YouTube videos for the dumbest fuckers out there, though. I want to assume that the people watching are smarter than I am and can teach me something, and not that are like just morons that natural selection has avoided because of laws,
Man, I tell you, because and I've buried a few. I don't know if I've sent you a photo. I've buried a few in a stand before. I get it. Don't get me wrong. I get it. I can just see like a tip spinning or ricocheting back and stabbing you in the foot or something like that. It's scary. It's just scary.
Yes.
Watching.
Well, I am going to work on the APOCs. I think the APOCs definitely need a lot more work put into them because they can take a lot of abuse, those things. I mean, I'm probably not going to bring them to failure or anything, but I think once I regain my footing in a new place and get myself going, I think I'm going to start working on those APOCs again and see if I can't put a lot more work into them. Maybe chopping some wood. You're doing maybe a chopping challenge. And I'm going to probably do like a day-to-day type of thing, like day 5, day 6, day 7 with the APOC walkie, and to see how much, these things can kind of take and keep on going.
I was thinking about taking up Scab's, what was it called? His stick that he wanted you to build.
Oh, the tri-stick.
His tri-stick. Yeah, it was going to be a try hard and do one with a katana on a tree. And just
that's kind of tough. Maybe a tanto. You could do it with a tanto.
No, I was thinking about not like a full tree, but like, like a not fully mature tree.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Still an actual green wood,
standing tree, like a standing tree. Oh, I see.
Still one, and I would make a tri-log, and
that's interesting. You could try that.
Yeah, I thought, but then I was like, that's too much time in filming and swords. But now that I have this wakizashi that Patrick sent, I can make a fiddle log. No, I won't. I'll try. I'm sorry.
Chris is not gonna let me send you anything else.
I hopefully it is helpful though. Hopefully it is contributing to the conversation. And so far I did, the APOC, actually I was really impressed. I thought it did a good showing because if I had not broken it, I would have not thought that it would take as much punishment as it did. And so to its credit, it was very nimble and felt very nice and held up really, really well to doing asinine things with it. I'm at least aware that they are silly things. So
I just don't want you to hurt yourself.
I
will feel
release
guilty.
You of any liability publicly in perpetuity for any stupid chicanery I get up to.
You heard it here first, folks. He's removing himself.
If I have a chunk of sword flying back in my face, it is not the fault of CAS Iberia or Patrick at all.
I cringe every time. I'm literally at work, like balled up at my desk going.
You're not the only pucker butt there. They're just sitting there like, don't do that. Like, no, that's a pretty common response. There are people that have a lot of respect for the time and energy it takes to make these things, and seeing some dope, willfully destroy them on the internet without, to achieve an end that seems otherwise obvious is painful. I can, you're aware of what's going to happen, but I think there are other people who are, legit, like, one day the croquet stake of doom will fall. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it won't. It's a steel rod. It's an inch thick steel rod. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to win every time.
Anyway, boys, this has been fun. I got to come off. I think we should definitely do this again.
Joe, it's good to see you, buddy.
Great to see you, Patrick. And I got some ideas, just in case I don't make it to the show. I do have some brainstorming ideas that we can kind of make happen if I don't make it to the show. But we'll talk about that, I guess, when we have
no
to.
pressure, man. I know
Yeah.
you got a lot going on.
I would love to. I really do. I mean, because it's just I would love to make it. It's just I'm kind of like 2 feet, 1 foot in each side of the door right now. So
it does look like you're calling from a cell right now, Joe. Like your walls being bare with just like the lights. It looks like you're in like a space prison.
the only reason the lights are staying in this apartment is because if I rip them off, it's going to rip off the paint. But if not, I would take them with me. But if not, but the LED lights are staying. That's the only thing that's staying. There's literally nothing on the wall. Actually, I got one thing on the wall. Hold on. What do I got on the wall? Right there. I got a wall hanger. That's the last thing that came off the freaking the Lord of the Rings. But that's about it. Everything else is pretty much barren. No knives, no swords. Nothing is going on.
I saw that and I instantly remembered your lube it up conversation, and
You got to lube them, man. You got to keep them lubed. They
I don't know.
got to be lubricated.
You
You
need
could call
to
it the Grievous
invest in
Injury.
that Flitz ceramic sealant.
Is
If
it
you're
good
not
stuff?
aware, Flitz makes a ceramic sealant.
Oh, I've heard of that before.
It is well worth the money.
I've heard of that.
If you don't have it, you can get it. It's the ceramic sealant. It's worth every penny.
They
Ceramic
Flitz sent me some stuff, and I did a video, and I put some ceramic sealant on stuff. But it's one of those like things I need to take time to do to see like the value in it. Because if you apply oil and wait, like, does it last longer? And right now, CLP lasts years, right? But I suppose I could like toss some outside and see if it holds up with rust or something like that.
We've got some that we've coated with it in the warehouse, 8, 9 months, going on 11, 12. Still good.
Yeah. No
That's
rust.
great.
Nothing. With the
No
moisture.
rust.
For a
and-
non-temperature
High
controlled
carbon.
environment too.
That's
I've
good.
talked to the Flitz guys about maybe doing something for us, on a smaller scale. And I'll see them again at Blade Show. Hey, we're going to make this thing happen. Like, this is the year it's going to happen. But
Yeah.
The ceramic sealant is the stuff. They're not paying me to say it, so I can't endorse it any more than I already have. But Joe, get you a bottle. Don't be afraid. It's good stuff. That's what I got. That's what I'm using here at my home on my stuff.
I'll look into it.
Yeah,
I mean, if we
coat's
could
real
cut down
nice.
the amount of maintenance, why not? That'd be cool.
Well, I don't know that it cuts. Well, in theory, if it lasts a
amount-
long time, but it looks nice. So with the ceramic sealant, I don't know if you're supposed to also then coat in oil or not. But if you're just leaving the sealant on, then basically it's ready to photograph, Joe. Like it doesn't look like anything's on it. And so if you wanted to break a sword out and like visually appreciate it without,
that's actually interesting that you say that, because if you're looking to photograph or get the details of a blade, you constantly have to wipe the oil off because you can't. It looks like a mess.
It looks like a rainbow.
Yeah. That's interesting.
It's all goopy, and so you have to, like, I use isopropyl to take stuff off, to clean it, to clean the goop off, and get stuff ready to do videos and things on. But the ceramic coating, when I sprayed it on, like, you'd think I was just putting water on the blade, and
I like that a lot.
It sits there, and so if you want to appreciate it as a collector and like it actually protects it, then But I got to go and like talk moistly at some swords that have it on there, so I can see if it starts rusting.
Yeah, we've got some out in the warehouse that have been almost a year now, no rust.
Cool.
Sitting out open, exposed.
Nice.
I'm gonna have to let Scab test that shit out because he's got humidity like crazy in Florida.
Whoa.
He should just leave it out.
That would be the hardcore test right there. I need to send him something.
If I seen the 90s commercial where a guy whacks a katana into a table and stabs himself, that was my father. And no, it wasn't.
That was on Shop.
I am going to follow in his footsteps and do better.
Yeah.
I think that guy's name was Matt, and he was with Tom Odell. That was on Shop at Home Network. It didn't even cut him. Todd Odell told me all about that. It's like it just came back and he did all this whole dramatic thing, and it didn't even cut him. QVC. Yes, QVC or Shop at Home, one of those two.
Oh, that's a bummer. He was just being a bee.
He was just hamming it up.
All right, boys. Listen, I got to
All right.
run. Patrick, a pleasure. Matthew, always a pleasure.
It's a good
Yeah,
time to stop. Thanks for everyone in the chat that has joined in. We'll call it here. Joe, thanks for joining. Patrick, thanks for joining. And
Anytime.
hopefully we can do it again.
I appreciate everybody asking questions. If you all have any that we didn't address, tell Matt, he'll email me and I'll ignore it for at least 5 days and then get back to him.
Sound like my wife.
All right.
Have a good one, Scott. Everybody in
Cheers,
the room.
everyone.
Have a good one, everybody. Have a good night.